The story begins on the sky-profound continent, in the floating cloud city, at the headquarters of the Xiao clan. Our protagonist is in his first life. His name is Xiao Che, 16 years old, the only grandson of the 5th elder of the Xiao clan. Today is a big day for him, as he will marry the #1 beauty in the entire floating cloud city, like a dream come true. The bride's name is Xiao Che. She is not only beautiful but also talented. On the other hand, the protagonist has had damaged meridians since birth and sees himself as useless. Xiao Che believes that his future wife must be reluctant to marry him. Elsewhere, Xiaoying, the grandson of the 2nd elder of the Xiao clan, gives Yulong a killing heart powder that is odorless and colorless, leaving no traces for anyone who ingests it. Xiao Yulong, the only son of the Xiao clan leader, thanks him for the work and feels satisfied. He mixes the powder into a soup. A girl carries a tray to deliver it to the protagonist. However, Xiao Yulong interrupts her. Xiao Lingxi, the only daughter of the 5th elder of the Xiao clan, introduces herself, saying that she will go to Little Che's room to serve a bowl of soup. But Xiao Yulong states that today is Xiao Che's big day, and he shouldn't drink that soup. Instead, he hands the spiked soup to the girl, without her knowing, claiming it is a medicinal supplement that will help the protagonist. The girl says the protagonist seems fine and doesn't need medicine or anything like that. Irritated, Xiao Yulong insists that she doesn't understand men and assures her that he would never do anything to harm his younger brother, Xiao Che. The girl then swaps the bowls, but she grows suspicious of the man. She asks why he is suddenly so concerned about little Che, but Yulong replies that he would be a bad brother if he didn't care about him. After that, he tells the girl to hurry before the soup gets cold, and he watches her walk towards Che. Yulong thinks that his younger brother should not blame him for this act of cruelty, for he was the one who forced him into doing it, claiming that Xiao Qingwei belongs to him, and only he can marry her, not trash like Xiao Che. Inside the protagonist's room, he receives the soup from the girl, and she says that, besides food, it also contains medicinal supplements, and she is unsure if the taste is good. Che says that if she prepared it, he would like it. The girl calls him a sweet talker. After that, he drinks the soup. The girl asks if the taste is pleasant. The protagonist tells her that he is feeling a bit dizzy. Right after, he collapses on the table. Lingxi asks what's happening and tells Che not to scare her like that. But the protagonist is already completely unconscious. Sometime later, on the Azure Cloud Continent, a new life begins for the protagonist. Still a baby, he was abandoned in a forest. His cries could be heard from afar. A man walking by heard him and approached. He realized that the poor boy had been abandoned, and he understood that their encounter was not by chance. The place where they were was calm, with light clouds and well illuminated. Then, the man decided to name the boy Yun Che. The old man said he would like to accept him as his disciple, and would teach him everything about medicine so he could heal anyone. The boy's gaze no longer seemed sad. Seeing how happy he was, the old man thought he already knew what to do, saying that, from now on, they would be master and disciple, and live together. 24 years passed on the Azure Cloud Continent. The situation is not pleasant at all. Animal and human corpses are scattered everywhere, along with their blood staining the land. Many died at once. In the same place, drops of blood drip on the ground, leaving the trail of someone walking down the road. A man walks, telling everyone to die, as he steps over the bloodstains of his victims. He says that everything and everyone must follow the departure of his master. The man notices a crowd approaching, saying it's good that they reach him soon, because he wants to go to a high place and finish what he started. He is Yun Che, now older, and arrives at the top of a hill. When he faces his pursuers, people say he is not worthy of being a disciple of the holy doctor. Due to his use of the sky wind pearl to spread poison, killing millions, today the 7 sects gather in the name of God to get rid of the cause of calamity. Yun Che finds himself cornered by this situation. He tells the people that he knows everyone present, and that they should be ashamed to speak in the name of God to justify their actions. Claims to know what they really want, the pearl of heaven's poison. Upon seeing this, they say that the relentless 3-day pursuit was not in vain. They claim that the pearl is the most important jewel on the continent, and that he is not worthy to possess it, so he should surrender himself along with the jewel. Yun says that his master saved countless lives and always cared more about others than himself, yet to obtain the pearl, others caused his death. And even after that, they still want the pearl. The protagonist refuses to hand it over, and then swallows the pearl. People insult him for his actions, saying that by doing so, he is courting death. They advance toward Yun, stating that it won't be difficult to kill him, as they are in great numbers. Seeing this makes the protagonist start laughing. He says that even if he dies, it won't be by their hands, and he jumps off the cliff. They call him crazy for jumping. The people say that the cliff is the first of the 4 deadliest places, and too benevolent for Yun to die in, regretting that they couldn't retrieve the jewel in time. While falling from the top of the cliff, Yun thinks that in this life, he had no regrets, except for not avenging his master or finding his biological parents. However, the jewel inside him begins to react. Back to his past life, a reincarnation occurs while little Che was in his bed. The girl still tries to wake him up, and Xiao Che finally opens his eyes, surprising the girl who was so insistent on making him wake up. After awakening, the protagonist tries to understand what happened. The girl, on the other hand, completely overjoyed, hugs him, grateful that he finally woke up. The protagonist still doesn't understand how he is alive, and pausing to think asks who the girl is. She says she's his little aunt, Xiaolingxi, and asks how he could forget her. Some memories suddenly arise in the protagonist. The girl's name is familiar to him. He soon recognizes her as his little aunt. He says that they grew up together since they were young until they were 12, and even bathed together as children. The girl is embarrassed by this detail. She says that today is the protagonist's big day, but out of nowhere, he fainted and made his grandfather worried. She steps back to call him over there. However, the protagonist gets up from his bed, saying he is Xiao Che of the Xiao clan and that today is his day to marry Xia Qingwei. But he remembers jumping off the cliff and wonders if everything that happened on the Azure Cloud Continent was a dream. He recalls his medical skills and tries to use them. Looking at his hand, he notices a different energy and realizes that everything was real, thinking that the pearl might have merged with his body and allowed him to reincarnate. The protagonist pauses for a moment to think and licks his lower lip, realizing that there is still some poison left, recognizing it as heart killer powder. Looking to the side, he notices that the soup bowl is broken. He concludes that he died from poisoning and still reincarnated in the body that was intoxicated, but since the pearl can neutralize any poison, he returned. All this leaves the protagonist very confused. Reincarnation itself is very surprising and above all, it happened exactly at the same place and time he died previously. But anyway, he's alive, and he may also have a beautiful wife, along with an opportunity to start over. Amidst his thoughts, Xiao Che's grandfather enters the room, surprising him. The old man asks if he feels any pain or discomfort. He then hugs his grandson, saying he was very worried when he suddenly fainted, but the protagonist insists that he is fine. The girl tells her father that Che still has to go get the bride and shouldn't be delayed. So, the grandfather calms down and tells Che to get ready. She rushes the protagonist to go get dressed. Before leaving, he sees the broken bowl once again. Seeing this makes the girl remember that she didn't clean up the mess. She asks the protagonist how the medicinal supplement soup that Yulong prepared tasted, claiming that it would be good for him. Quickly, the protagonist realizes that the person behind his attempted murder was his own brother. Profound energy, born from the profound veins, is a mysterious power. Whoever possesses it will have more strength than others. According to the profound energy, there are 10 unparalleled hierarchical realms. They are the elementary, nascent, profound, true, spiritual, earth, heaven, emperor, tyrant, and sovereign realms. And lastly, the divine origin realm. On the sky profound continent, strength means respect, where the realms of profound energy decide one's position. The strong are praised and admired, the weak are bullied and humiliated. In Floating Cloud City, some people inquire about Xiao Che, saying there are rumors about his marriage to the number 1 beauty in the city, despite not having profound strength. They even say that Zhao's father gave his life to save Xia Qingwei, and that's why the marriage was arranged. One of the gossips envies the protagonist's position, and another scolds him, saying such a position is not fit for him. Another man asks if they can still call the protagonist a young master after hearing about the toilet incident at the Xiao clan. The other man asks what incident that is. A man replies that Xiao Che had a disagreement with a servant of the Xiao clan. The servant asked if Xiao had filled a bucket with urine at night. He apologized and said it wasn't intentional, that he had just drunk a lot of water, but the servant didn't accept the apology and demanded that he dispose of the urine himself. The men laugh and ask if Xiao really obeyed the servant, saying he is a weak master for doing that. Even an old man jumps into the conversation, saying that Xia possesses great talents but will have to marry a useless person. The youngest man says that the old man doesn't genuinely pity the young lady, and she would never glance at an old man like him. However, the old man retorts, saying that he is at least a level 3 specialist of the profound elementary realm, and even one of his farts could easily kill the so-called Xiao Che. The others, hearing this, are astonished. However, some don't believe it, saying the old man is just pretending to be strong and should be ashamed. But some say that even this old man would be able to defeat someone as weak as Che. At another moment, in the protagonist's house, he hears from his aunt not to pay attention to what others say about him, and just focus on his wedding. The protagonist says he is used to being called useless by many. In his thoughts, he recalls that in his first life, he was considered crippled for having damaged veins, being humiliated by everyone because of it. However, in the second life, he was a disciple of a master physician and even possesses such skills to be used at any moment. He concludes that someday his profound veins will be restored, and he will be at the top. Ready for the wedding, The bridal escort awaits him outside, but when he sees the servants, he is surprised. Their appearance is grotesque, making the protagonist think that the bride will be scared. Xiao Yang, the grandson of the second elder, calls him brother and says he personally chose this escort and asks if he is satisfied. Che asks his brother if he couldn't choose servants with a better appearance, at least less frightening. But Yang says that his brother is mistaken because today he is the main figure of the clan, and without the servants, he would not be able to highlight his beauty for the future wife. The protagonist looks at the servants again, and thinks that his beauty doesn't need their help to stand out. One of the servants urges him to get on the horse, as it's getting late. Upon seeing the mount, Che is surprised again. The horse is, in fact, a donkey. The aunt scolds Yang for such choices, saying he is not showing respect for their family. But he insists that's not the case and would never offend the fifth elder, the most respected in the city. The girl then asks what's going on since he set such conditions for little Che's journey. Yang responds that he has no intention of hiding it, but all the horses are sick, and he had no other choice. Yulong appears and asks what's the reason for the confusion. Yang asks why he is there. Yulong says he was just passing by and repeats his question. Yang replies that nothing serious is happening, and it's not worth his time. The protagonist, on the other hand, states that it's no big deal for the horses to be unwell and for him to have to travel on a donkey. The girl asks why he's taking Yang's side. After hearing this, Yulong says it is a problem, but the protagonist insists that if it's to meet his wife, nothing will be an obstacle, and he asks brother Yulong if he doesn't think so too. He only says that, in that case, he wishes his younger brother to reach his future wife as soon as possible, and won't delay him. Soon he leaves the place, calling for Yang. The girl asks why the protagonist didn't tell the truth, as it was obvious they were trying to make fun of him. However, Che replies that the two were in this together, and Yulong would never do justice for him. Indignant, the girl says she will tell her grandfather, as the situation has gone too far. Che stops her, saying that if she causes an even bigger commotion, there will be no wedding. She replies that it would be better if he couldn't get married. The protagonist didn't quite hear what she said, but the girl claims it's nothing important. So, he prepares to leave. She watches him from afar as he goes away, and wonders why she isn't happy for him on his big day, because she's crying instead of smiling. The protagonist didn't give up on his mission and went anyway. On the way, he wonders what would have happened if the girl wasn't his little aunt. Riding the donkey, he goes through the entire path, while the two who orchestrated everything watch him from a distance. Yang tries to talk to his brother, but gets slapped in the face in response. Yulong reminds him that he said earlier that anyone who consumed the heart killer powder would die and asks why Che is still alive. Lying on the ground, Yang doesn't know how to respond. He looks at his brother, and simply says he doesn't know what happened. Apparently, Xiao Che passed out but suddenly woke up again. Furious, Yulong says that now he'll have to watch Xia Qingwen marry that useless guy. Yang tries to calm him down, saying that on the way to get the bride, there will be plenty of new opportunities. He suggests they could kidnap the bride by force. But Yulong says the plan is stupid and if it were that easy, he would have done it himself. He claims that Che might not be good at anything, but his grandfather is at the 10th level of the profound spiritual realm, and there's no one in Floating Cloud City who can compete with him. He also adds that as long as the old man is alive, no one will dare to attack Che in broad daylight. Yang tells his boss not to worry so much because they found another angle. Xia Qingwen is the #1 beauty in the city. Even if she accepts the marriage, due to her status, she would never allow Che to lay a finger on her. Still, even if they search the entire city, someone worthy of her must have talent and elegance, and that person is Yulong. Happy to hear this, Yulong tells him not to flatter him too much, but to continue talking. Yang says that Che picking up the bride is the same as bringing her to him, and once they get to know each other better, with so many advantages Yulong has over Che, cheating on him won't be difficult. That way, Che's wife will be the same as his boss's wife. Hearing this, Yulong feels more excited and thinks that maybe it wasn't a complete failure that Che didn't die from the poison. In another moment, and in another place, some people walk through the streets of the protagonist's future wife's hometown. He finally arrives with his wedding entourage. Some onlookers comment that it's no wonder his clan is the richest among others, due to the kilometers-long red carpet. The men see the protagonist approaching, and wonder if he is really riding a donkey. They even think it suits his identity as a pampered young master. However, the protagonist isn't shaken, and says that riding a donkey, he can fetch the most beautiful woman in Floating Cloud City as his bride, unlike the envious ones. Hearing this makes the others furious. They threaten Che, calling him scum with no profound power, possessing only beauty and wealth, nothing more. Che doesn't feel afraid of the threats, and tells his men that someone wants to pick a fight with him. Soon, his servants protect Che from the troublemakers, taking charge of his security. The guard's appearance intimidates them, along with a strong breath that comes out of his mouth and disgusts everyone. With that, the men give up provoking the protagonist and insist that his guards stop bothering them. The protagonist thinks that he has lived 2 lives and nothing they do will be impossible to handle. After his men dealt with the troublemakers, the path to the bride was clear. Che dismounts the donkey upon arriving, but then, he is immediately startled. A big man walks over to him, calling him brother-in-law, saying that it's now official. Che tries to back away from him, but the big man insists on hugging him tightly. He tells the man not to overdo it, or his sister might become a widow. He is Xia Yuanda, 15 years old. Realizing the exaggeration, he apologizes and says he was just more excited than usual. Che tells him to take it easy when hugging him again. When he stands up, the protagonist notices that Yuanba has gotten bigger. Yuanba says he now sees his brother-in-law as a little bean sprout, but Che doesn't see it as a good thing since Yuanba is only 15 years old. Nearby, some girls are surprised to see Xiao Che arrive there riding a donkey, saying it's no wonder he's known as the pampered young master. Furious, Yuanba reprimands them, telling them not to speak that way about his brother-in-law. But Che himself interrupts and takes over the conversation. He warns the girls not to be rude. After this, the bride's father, Xia Hongi, introduces himself. Che, upon seeing him, greets his father-in-law. Hongi tells the protagonist that, from this day on, he is entrusting his daughter to the young man. Although he is not exceptional, Che's father, his sworn brother Xiaoying, was a true hero. He adds that, because Che is Xiaoying's son, he believes the young man will never be an ordinary person. Che is moved by these words. His father-in-law tells him to treat his daughter well and not pay attention to the rumors. The protagonist says he knows he is a cripple, but someday the sleeping dragon in the valley will awaken. And at that moment, all the contempt and humiliation against him will disappear like smoke or scatter like clouds. The bride's father concludes that she may have a bright future by his side. Then he authorizes their departure. After this, the maidservants accompany the bride outside. As she approaches, the protagonist extends his hand to help her. However, he notices something unusual. When she touches his hand, a different energy emanates. Then, she enters the carriage. The maidservants cry as they see their lady leaving with Xiao Che. He, in turn, realizes that he still cannot truly touch his wife. However, they leave the place, and some men await their arrival. They are eager to see the beautiful lady passing by on the street, wondering what her face looks like, since no one has seen her until now. The two arrive and pay respects to Xiao Che's ancestors. Both the protagonist and his wife bow in front of Xiao Yuhai, the master of the Xiao clan, who shows no reaction upon seeing them. At the scene, husband and wife exchange bows. Envious, others wish they were in the protagonist's place, saying they are better than him in every way. However, his little aunt thinks it's a blessing for the two to be married and scolds the envious ones. One of the men says that Xia Qingwei is too intelligent and cannot be compared to Che. Others say that the number one beauty and the most useless man actually suit each other quite well. But the aunt strongly disagrees with them. While the couple performs the wedding process, a sycophant says that the fifth elder has gained an excellent daughter-in-law, congratulating him. Another one also congratulates him and states that Xiao Che is very lucky. The elder thanks them for the compliments and tells them to drink. But one of the men says he needs to leave and attend to personal matters, as his presence has already been acknowledged, and wine is no longer necessary, leaving the elder embarrassed. Another guest also says he has to leave, as he has something to do, and bids farewell. While a third one was already on his way out, the elder becomes furious with them, saying that, at Xiao Che's wedding, they didn't even drink a glass of wine. He claims this is a great disrespect. He stands up, very angry at the men. However, one of the guests tells the elder to think carefully, for when he dies, his useless grandson will take over the clan's leadership. Hearing this leaves the old man stunned. Xiao Che notices the elder's nervousness, but a lady tries to ease the tension, saying that the newlyweds should go to the bridal chamber first. The two head straight to the place, and the bride tells the protagonist that seeing his grandfather being intimidated must have been very difficult for him. But in a cheerful manner, Che says that she should first remove the crown she is wearing, as it seems heavy, expressing his concern for his wife. The bride then removes the veil covering her face, leaving the protagonist dazzled by her beauty, which is worthy of her reputation. She, in turn, says that Che's emotional transformation is quick, and it seems like he is as weak as the rumors say, asserting that he endures humiliation quite well. But Che responds that his damaged vein is a fact, and he is destined to belong to the weak, yet there is a big difference between enduring all of this or not. However, the bride surprises him by using a kind of technique. Without knowing what will happen next, the protagonist is startled. But Xia Qingwei channels energy from her hands and touches the protagonist to heal him. At first, he feels discomfort. However, he soon realizes what she truly did. Xia Qingwei finishes the process, and Che notices an internal change. The bride tells him that he wasn't born with damaged profound veins, and in fact, they were destroyed. Surprised, Xiao Che asks how that's possible. She says that the most likely scenario is that they were severely damaged when he was younger, and no one noticed, and by now, there is no possibility of restoration. Some energy stones are under the protagonist. He says that what his bride says may not necessarily be true, and regarding the energy stones, he states that if he's not mistaken, there is no ice technique within Floating Cloud City. Xiao Che replies that this is the frozen cloud art. Che asks if it's the frozen cloud of Asgard, one of the 4 main sects within the Blue Wind Empire. The bride says that until now, only her father knew about it, and since he is her husband, at least on paper, there's no problem in telling him. She says that some time ago, to save her life, Uncle Xiao suffered severe injuries, to the point of being unable to defend himself when attacked. The protagonist realizes that she is talking about his father. Xiao Qingwe says that even though it was to repay his kindness, she does not regret marrying him. However, she states that they cannot consummate the marriage. She tells him not to misunderstand and that she doesn't look down on him. Meanwhile, a cold energy spreads across the floor. The bride says that anyone who wants to practice ice arts must first cultivate a frozen heart. The Frozen Cloud sect only accepts pure and emotionless women. She also states that even though she married him, she doesn't intend to fall in love with anyone in this life. Feeling a bit frustrated, the protagonist becomes sad. But someone interrupts the conversation, telling the young master that it's time for the toast. Hearing this, the bride says that he should go. He soon goes to the toast, leaving her alone, with the place covered in an icy mist. Shortly after, a woman appears in the room. She is the representative of the Frozen Cloud Asgard sect, Chu Yueli. The bride recognizes her as her master, and Chu Yueli says that Xiao Qingwe has already done what she wanted. Now it's time to return to the sect. However, Xiao Qingwe asks for at least 1 more month, as leaving right after the wedding would bring endless ridicule upon her husband. Her master agrees, saying that an exception was already made for her to marry, and extending it another month won't be a problem. Xiao Qingwe thanks her and asks if it's truly impossible to restore Che's profound veins. Chu Yueli states that Xiao Qingwe is a kind, compassionate person with a big heart, which is very good. However, her master cannot help her this time. The wedding banquet is still ongoing. Xiao Che offers a drink to an elderly guest. The elder doesn't even thank him for the gesture, and the others sitting at the table don't feel comfortable with the protagonist's presence either. With that, Che feels completely embarrassed. One of the elders says that a delicate flower was placed on something extremely rotten, making a reference to the marriage. Hearing this leaves the protagonist unsure of how to react. He thinks that in this situation, he's setting himself up to be humiliated by them, and if he hadn't used all the power of the pearl in his past life, he would have poisoned them by now. Then, someone appears with a large wine jar. Yulung says that Xiao Che must have a drink with his older brother. The protagonist tries to dodge by saying that he's not strong with alcohol, but Yulung insists and says that he cannot refuse. Cleverly, Che uses one of his abilities before drinking, and accepts to drink with his brother. Yulung says they won't stop until they're completely drunk. 2 periods later, some guests were already passed out from the alcohol. The protagonist, on the other hand, seems very calm because of his abilities. With the entire inner space of the Heaven's Poison Pearl, he can drink liters and not get drunk. However, he needs to get rid of the liquid somehow, and thinks it's better to dispose of the wine first. With a kind of portal through his hand, he expels the liquid outside. However, suddenly, some young women see him, and think that the young master is urinating outside. Xiao Che thinks it would be boring to return like this, and decides to give his wife a little surprise. So he decides to put some of the liquid on his face to have a smell of alcohol. With this, he pretends to be drunk. After doing so, the young women who are still watching him from afar conclude that he is so intoxicated that he's putting his own urine on his face and walk away from him. Xiao Qingwe was waiting for his return in the room, and the protagonist appears pretending to be drunk. However, an incredible force throws him away. Che is launched out of the room, and doesn't know what happened. He tries to get up after the fall. Feeling unsure of what to do, Che asks if his wife wants to kill him with such strength, telling her to open the door, as it was just a joke and he can't stay outside the room on their wedding night, because others will make fun of him. Besides, he is her husband, and he asks if she could bear to see others humiliating him for that. With these words, he convinces his wife to let him in. But Xiao Che has not lost his sense of humor, and invites his wife to go to bed. However, Qingwe says that he is not allowed to be within 5 steps of her, and furthermore, he cannot call her wife. Xiao Che then asks where he is supposed to sleep. She says that he will lie on the bed while she will sleep on the floor. But Che says that, as a man, he cannot let his wife sleep on the floor. So Qingwe says he will sleep on the floor, on the makeshift bed she had already prepared. Che comments that his wife seems to hate him a little and that he was actually a bit drunk, which is why he was joking around. Qingwe says she already knew that, but warns him never to call her wife again. He insists, saying that he fetched her, and she agreed to marry him. They even paid respects to his ancestors together, which should be enough for him to call her wife. She reveals that she hates people who urinate anywhere, but Che says that he was only pouring out wine. However, Qinghua says she was joking too, leaving Che embarrassed for not realizing it. The protagonist is frustrated because he married a wife who refuses to share a bed with him, and if his current body had enough strength, he would have already acted. He thinks of a way to restore his veins because he cannot remain like this forever. While walking, he notices something. He stares at his hand for a while. He thinks that in his previous life, when he was on the Azure Cloud Continent, the pearl only glowed 6 times. Every time it happened, it meant there were rare treasures nearby. In the back courtyard of the Xiao clan, Che found it strange because he certainly followed the direction of the sky poison pearl but found nothing. However, his hand glows once more. He points in the direction of the ground, and something starts to reveal itself. An illusion of the concealment form receives light to be revealed, showing a hidden star herb, actually 2. In his last life, the protagonist lived for 24 years and only managed to find one. They are treasures used to kill people or set traps for someone. With them, he can do whatever he wants, but he must avoid being seen by others. Che decides to store the herb using his pearl storage. Soon, with his hand, he manages to absorb the treasure. However, something catches his attention. He looks in the opposite direction from where he was, and notices something lying on the ground, thinking it might be another treasure. But his pearl did not react to it. Soon, he realizes it is a person, someone lying on the grass without moving. He tries to guess if they are just unconscious or not. The protagonist approaches and notices that it is a girl. She is completely unconscious, lying on the grass. Che tries to deduce what could have happened to her, and touches her face, but she does not react. Then, he tries to wake her up with a pinch, but his hand is covered in poison. His power absorbed all the poison from the girl. Soon, he realizes what happened to her. However, the poison begins consuming him, and he is frightened by the venom's power, but his pearl manages to absorb everything, saving him from being poisoned by it. After calming down, he realizes that the pearl absorbed everything, saving him. Otherwise, touching the girl would have killed him. But the girl still arouses his curiosity about her identity and why she was poisoned. However, while he was looking at his hand, the girl grabs it. She wakes up and recognizes the sky pearl. This fact surprises the protagonist. The protagonist's finger was bleeding, and the girl puts it in her mouth to suck the blood. Che notices this and feels uncomfortable, telling her not to do that, because it could be dangerous for both of them. Nervous about the whole situation, he pulls his finger back, but then realizes that, out of nowhere, the girl disappeared, leaving him baffled as to how she did that. However, he focuses and notices that she ended up inside the pearl, through the portal in his hand. The protagonist somehow manages to cross the pearl's portal. There, he sees the girl from afar, and slowly approaches her. Upon floating closer, he stops in front of her, inside the sky poison pearl's internal space. The girl is unconscious, but the pearl is purifying the poison from her body. But the pearl has already fused with Che, making him wonder how she can do this on her own. He thinks this is why the pearl absorbed the girl, to try to purify her completely. Seeing the girl in her current state, the protagonist says that since she is practically living inside him, she should pay rent, and he intends to collect the debt with her body. However, when trying to touch her, he is stopped by himself. He concludes that she is just a little girl and he cannot do something so despicable to her. At the very least, he should wait a few years. Returning to the normal plane, he says that the fact he doesn't want to touch her has nothing to do with her identity. However, someone hears what he said and asks whom he intends to touch. He quickly justifies himself, saying he doesn't intend to touch anyone, but then realizes the voice was from his little aunt. She asks what he is doing there alone in the middle of the night. Che responds that he couldn't sleep, so he came out to look at the stars. But in his thoughts, he concludes that this is better than saying that his wife didn't let him sleep with her in bed, so he went out. His aunt says it is very dangerous to be there because there might be bandits around. To lighten the mood, Che says that it's not surprising she is still awake, as she was too worried about him to sleep. However, she says that's not exactly the case and that she also came out to look at the stars. But in her thoughts, she says that he just got married, so how could she sleep peacefully after that? The protagonist decides that they should stargaze together. He mentions that it has been months since they last looked at the stars together under the moonlight. The girl agrees and still remembers the memorable winter night. On that occasion, they watched the stars for a long time and, without realizing it, fell asleep. They didn't expect it to start snowing during the night. The next day, they were found looking like 2 little snowmen, and their grandfather was very worried. After that, they recovered after staying by the stove for 2 days. Che agrees and remembers that they also drank a very bitter medicinal soup. Recalling these things brings them closer, and Che tries to kiss her. However, the girl says they can't do that anymore like when they were kids because they have grown up and he is now married. The protagonist knows that his marriage is only for show, but he doesn't reveal that and simply says that he has a great desire to kiss her now. But for that, she says they must be married first. Che says that if she wasn't his little aunt, he would definitely have married her. Hearing this makes the girl blush. The protagonist notices that she feels quite embarrassed. Seeing that she is looking around everywhere, he asks what she is searching for. She says she doesn't want his wife to see them together there. However, Che says he's not afraid to say what he said, and even if his wife were there, he would still affirm that he really wishes he could have married her instead of his aunt. But the girl says that she understands what he is feeling, yet warns him not to say that again, and asks if she is still his little aunt. Feeling a bit confused, the protagonist doesn't know what to say, so he hugs her, and the girl says that knowing his feelings is enough for her. However, behind the tree where they were, the protagonist's wife approaches, and sees the two together in that place. Upon noticing the closeness between them, she withdraws from the spot, and leaves the two of them alone by the tree. Then she goes to another place and sits down. Morning comes, and the protagonist, along with the girl, slept by the tree. He wakes up and notices something different. The girl has a blanket. Soon he realizes that this blanket was on his bed. He deduces that his wife brought this blanket, and he thinks that on the night of his wedding, not only did he spend the night with another girl, but also his wife brought a blanket for the two of them, and he feels somewhat happy about it. At another moment, in the Xiao clan's house, a servant tells his chief that something big has happened. He says it's still early and asks what happened. The servant says he received a letter from the Xiao sect. Hearing this makes the chief alarmed, and he tells the servant that he will inform the elders to go immediately to the meeting room. Back to the protagonist, he returns to his room feeling very suspicious. He enters the room carefully, soon realizing that his wife was waiting for him. She asks if he had such a comfortable sleep last night that he didn't dare to come back until now. But Che simply says it wasn't that comfortable, and thinks that if she tries sleeping sitting in a tree, she'll find out. The protagonist brings the blanket back, and immediately puts it back on the bed. After that, he takes Qingyue's hand and tries to say something. She, in turn, doesn't seem to like the situation very much. But before they could say anything, Che's grandfather appears. Saying that Che woke up very early, the two wish the old man a good morning. Seeing the two together, he feels relieved, and Che pretends to be joyful around him. A servant appears and tells the fifth elder that, by order of the clan leader, he must immediately join the others in the main hall for a meeting. The old man realizes it is something urgent, and says he is on his way. His grandson bids him farewell and tells him to be careful. He is then accompanied by the servant to his destination. Che, for some reason, feels a sinister aura. He soon notices some discomfort in his wife and steps back, saying that he only held her hand to please his grandfather, and that there is no other meaning behind it. However, Qinghua says that the next time he dares to touch her body, she will not be so gentle. Che says she is exaggerating, as he only held her hand, not to mention that they are officially married, so he has the right to touch her hand just like any other place. Qinghua asks if he is interested in touching other places. Che responds affirmatively, saying that if there is no physical connection between them, there will be spiritual friction. But soon he feels a bit cold, and does not know why. When suddenly he sees Qinghua using her abilities, he is frightened by her, and Qinghua only stares at him angrily. Che claims that he was just joking and will not touch her again. Later, the clan leader takes his place at the meeting, and says that this is the situation in which everyone already knows what to do with the younger generation. One of the elders says that, on his part, there will be no problem, as he is confident he will make good use of this rare opportunity. Another one says that someone's grandson is not prepared and fears that there will be no chance this time. The protagonist's grandfather remains silent. Outside, some men are training. One of them even uses a tree as a punching bag, and punches it forcefully, leaving the others impressed with his skills. The tree trunk is shattered by the blows, but he feels no pain, stating that training can sometimes be very refreshing. The protagonist shows up and says that these guys used to be lazier than the others and wonders why they are so dedicated today. Suddenly, he sees a man practicing flattery, praising the beauty of his imaginary master, and claiming he would do anything for him. This man thinks that, in the art of flattery, he is the best and that no one in the Xiao clan can surpass him, saying that such an opportunity will definitely be his. Seeing such flattery, the protagonist is surprised and confused, asking what, after all, is going on and why everyone is acting so strangely. He sees his grandfather and asks him what's happening, saying that his expression suggests something bad has occurred. The grandfather says that a great event for the Xiao clan is about to take place. The old man says that a letter came from the Xiao sect saying they sent some men there a few days ago. Che does not understand why they would do that, and says that, compared to the Xiao sect, they are, at best, a poor relative that no one cares about, and asks why they sent someone there. His grandfather replies that the founder of the Xiao clan, Bieli, was the son of Xiao Xing, an elder of the legislative control department of the Xiao sect, but he ended up being expelled from the sect. Now that Xiao Xing has died, before his passing, he remembered this son and felt remorse, so he left a will to give the clan a spot for entry into the sect. Whoever enters will certainly be from the younger generation, with the greatest talents in the clan, and unfortunately, the old man thinks his descendants will not be chosen. The protagonist understands why the others are training so hard, as they are all thinking about this opportunity. The old man tells Che not to feel bad, and even if he lets the opportunity pass, it's not a big deal. However, the young man says there is no reason to feel bad, and says he wants to have breakfast with his grandfather, and will take the chance to bring some to his little aunt and Qingwei. So the two head to the dining area. The two are seen by Yang, who is watching them. He makes sure he is not being followed, and he goes straight to his boss. Upon arriving, he says that Xiao Che and his grandfather have left. It seems they are heading to the eastern courtyard, and he says this is a good opportunity for them. Yulong says he knows what to do. In another nearby location, Qingwei walks a bit near the trees. Someone approaches her, saying it's no wonder her nickname is the #1 beauty of Floating Cloud City, and that even while meditating, she is charming. Yulong tries to introduce himself to her. However, Qingwei cuts him off, saying that Xiao Che is not here, so he should turn around and leave. Yulong says that's unfortunate, but meeting Miss Xia means it wasn't a waste. Qingwei says she is cultivating and apologizes for not being able to host him. Hearing this, Yulong realizes that the woman is not giving him any attention at all and thinks that perhaps he needs to be a bit rude. So, he raises his hand. He says he heard that she, at 16 years old, is at the 10th level of the profound elementary realm. He also states that he has always admired her and invites her to spar a little. However, he practically lunges at her, but Qingwei is not surprised. She extends her hand towards Yulong. This makes him think that she has a beautiful hand and wonders what it would feel like to touch it. But as he tries to do so, Qingwei dodges. Her speed surprises the man, who is then immediately struck hard in the face. The force is so strong that he falls, bleeding, with 2 teeth missing. Qingwei simply says that it seems he's not very good at fighting, and therefore should leave. Yulong gets up without understanding what happened. He thinks that he is at the 3rd level of the nascent profound realm, a realm above Qingwei, and even though he didn't use his full strength, it shouldn't have been enough to lose. He also thinks that Qingwei may be hiding her true power because, at just 16 years old, she reached level 10 of the profound elementary realm. That, in itself, has broken all records in Floating Cloud City, making it impossible for her to be stronger than that. Qingwei asks why Yulong is so surprised, saying that it looks like he's not satisfied. Yulong says that he was just testing before, which is why he didn't use his full strength. But this time, Miss Xia should pay more attention to him. With that, Yulong charges at Qingwei again. She, in turn, uses her abilities, striking him again with great force. And this time, Yulong is thrown farther than the first time, without even having a chance to react. Qingwei says that the fight is over and tells him to leave, but unwilling to accept it, Yulong gets up, even spitting blood from the blow he took. He still tries not to appear defeated, thinking that the woman is definitely hiding her power. The protagonist, who has just finished breakfast with his grandfather, wonders if his wife likes stuffed buns, and says that, in any case, his little aunt likes them a lot. Then he notices his brother Yulong walking around. Yulong tries to hide his face and flee, but Che insists on talking to him and asks what happened to his face. Angrily, Yulong tries to escape, but Che sees him up close and realizes he has been beaten up, and demands to know who did this to him. However, Yulong just says that he fell while training, and Che doesn't need to worry. Soon, the protagonist concludes that his brother must have worked very hard and says he won't bother him anymore, bidding him farewell. In his thoughts, the protagonist tells Yulong to keep running away, because it's clear that he was bothering his wife, whom even he hasn't dared to challenge. Che approaches Qingwei and says he brought breakfast. She immediately informs him that Yulong was there. Che says he already knows, as he ran into him on the way. He gets closer to his wife and asks, "What level is your profound strength?" But she steps away from Che without answering. The protagonist tries to corner her and demand an answer. However, he can't get anything out of her, and they both stare at each other closely for a brief moment. She asks why he's staring at her so much. Che says he's waiting for her answer. He asserts that communication between a couple is very important, whether mentally or physically. Qingwei becomes irritated upon hearing this. Che quickly notices and changes the subject. In his thoughts, he concludes that he didn't marry a woman but rather a block of ice. Returning to the conversation, he says he has something important to ask her. Che asks if she wakes up from her dreams every day at 3 in the morning, and besides that, for 30 minutes, her whole body becomes cold, and her limbs ache. Qingwei asks how he knows all of this. He says he has one last question, about her menstruation being delayed for 7 or 8 days. After asking the question, afraid of being attacked, Che runs. His wife does not understand this action, and asks what he is doing behind the tree. He responds that he is afraid she might kill him. However, Qinghua tells him not to exaggerate, that at most, she would only break one of his legs. Che tells her not to joke around with such a serious expression, especially since she just beat up Yulong for much less. Qinghua says she won't attack, and asks Che to come closer. She asks how he knew all of that. Xiao Che responds that it was from her pulse. He adds that it can't be guessed, so he decides to tell her that, in fact, he is a master in medicine. The bride says she doesn't remember letting him take her pulse, but Che says he took the opportunity to touch her hand earlier when her grandfather approached. She asks if, at that time, he did it on purpose. Unintentionally, the protagonist lets this information slip, but tells his bride not to focus on the details. Qinghua says that, since he likes to touch hands and measure pulses, he should go and seek out his little aunt. Che says he was not joking and asserts that she may have a serious illness, and the problem is her sect and the secret art she cultivates. However, angrily, Qinghua tells him to shut up, and immediately activates her ability, directing it towards her hand. She states that, if he continues with such words, she will no longer be gentle, but the protagonist asks what she will do if he keeps talking. He adds that he can tolerate her usual rejection, but he will never allow his wife, due to an illness, to live a third less than normal people. These statements surprise Qinghua. Che says that the stronger the profound strength, the longer her lifespan will be. But, according to his diagnosis, among those with the same level of skill, those from the frozen cloud have reduced life expectancy due to their cultivation. Qinghua affirms that what he says is correct. Che then tells her to go back to her room and sit down, as her husband will make some adjustments to her personally. Even though she really wants to hit him, Qinghua agrees and follows him to the room. She says that this involves important matters and does not believe what he said. Che states that what he said is a secret related to the survival of the frozen cloud fairies of Asgard, and of course, no one knows. Qinghua asks how he intends to adjust her profound strength. Che responds that he will use acupuncture needles. She knows that the technique is extremely demanding in terms of mastery, requiring at least 10 years to achieve basic mastery and decades for complete mastery. Xiao Che is only 16 years old, and yet, his handling is so natural and skillful, making it seem as if he is truly a master in medicine. With that, Qinghua puts a little more trust in him. The protagonist tells his wife that, instead of focusing on his face, she should pay more attention to his pulse. When she looks at his hand, she notices a needle already inserted. She was only distracted for a brief moment, and didn't realize it, wondering if the protagonist is really a person with damaged veins. Xiao Che tells her to relax her hands and breathe steadily and not to use her profound strength. He watches his wife closely, placing more needles into her hand. After that, he sighs in relief. When Qinghua finally notices her hands, several needles have already been inserted. She feels that her hands suddenly became much lighter. The congested cold energy was released, making everything much more comfortable for her. Che says it's a pity that she won't let him make deeper adjustments, as he could allow her cultivation speed to increase by 30%. Qinghua says that if he really possesses such ability, it would cause chaos in the world. The protagonist says that she would only find out the truth if she tested it. He adds that, since she is beginning to believe, he politely asks her to remove her clothes. Then, the protagonist appears with a bump on his head. Qinghua says she didn't quite hear what he said. Che states that it wasn't for her to undress completely, and there was no need to hit him. She says that now she believes his abilities are real, and it's hard to imagine that, at his current age, he is so talented. Xiao Che says that it is due to his master. He relates that he was a great doctor who saved countless lives, and he met him when he was still very young. But he doesn't want to talk about it, and changes the subject. He says that the deep adjustments he mentioned were only for her to show her back. Qinghua asks if he's sure he can permanently increase her cultivation speed by 30%. He affirms that he is absolutely sure and thinks that in the continent, power means respect, and there is no one who can resist such a temptation. Thus, Qinghua decides to allow it, and asks him to show his mysterious medicinal skills. She turns her back to Che. After a brief moment, she asks if she really has to undress. Che says that it is necessary. Despite being embarrassed, Qinghua decides to trust him, and removes a part of her dress, revealing her back. She tells Che to start immediately and not to think anything improper, otherwise he knows the consequences. The protagonist thinks that a woman's body is meant for her husband to see, and the fact that she is so uncomfortable makes it seem like he is forcing something. But on the other hand, his wife's skin is very fair, making him wonder what it would feel like to touch it. However, he cuts himself off, saying he must rid himself of distractions. He then picks up the needles, and prepares to use them. With that, he begins inserting them one by one into Qingyue's back. She thinks that her back feels only the opposite of the needle's tip, and is surprised that a guy who habitually uses such indecent words is not taking advantage of the situation to touch her body. Qingwei considers the possibility that Che is pretending to be lascivious, but concludes that he would gain nothing from it, making it hard to read his intentions. Che continues inserting the needles, and Qingwei feels something different, thinking aloud about the protagonist, but he tells her not to move. His wife says that his profound strength was very pitifully low, and using it this way would be too exhausting for him. However, Che states that he can handle it. Little does she know that he possesses the pearl's energy. The jewel's power allows him to perform the process without issues. When inserting the 30th needle, the protagonist realizes that he didn't expect that recanalizing the profound energy would be so exhausting. He pretended to be strong, and even while holding back tears, he must endure until the end. Qingwei notices that his movements have become very slow. Exhausted, Che says there are 24 needles left and that he needs to finish. After a while, he finally succeeds, saying that he did not deceive Qingwei. She channels her energy and realizes that it's flowing incomparably well, as Che really succeeded. Even if her master were to see her now, at this moment, she would be absolutely surprised. Qingwei tells Xiao Che that she did not expect someone despised by everyone to possess such surprising skills. She also says that, as he knows, she will leave in a month, and asks why he did so much for her and with such dedication. He responds with 3 reasons. The first is that she does not despise him like others do, and even protects his dignity. Additionally, last night she looked for him out of concern for his disappearance, and even brought a blanket, so he felt he should repay her kindness. The second reason is that, in the end, she is his wife. And the third and most important reason is because he thinks that Qingyue's appearance without clothes must be great. In another scene, we see Xiao Che's grandfather. He went to the boy's father's grave and says that something happened in the clan, as the sect has finally sent someone. The opportunity to finally revive the clan has arrived. However, he is no longer there to see it. He also says that Xiao Che started a family, and although he is not truly his son, it was the life he fought to give the boy, and his real son's life that he fought to preserve. That's why the old man will also do everything to keep him safe. However, in the middle of the conversation, he is interrupted. Yulong appears and greets the elder, saying he didn't know he was there, and asks if his presence bothers him. But Yulong realizes that the elder is no longer in front of him, and wonders where he went, when he is surprised by the same elder appearing behind him. The old man asks if Yulong heard anything he just said. Yulong notices that the elder is emitting a murderous aura and replies that he just arrived and didn't hear anything. Angrily, the elder asks what he's doing there. Yulong replies that, since the messenger arrives tomorrow, he wants to share this good news with the deceased great-grandfather. The elder says he understands, and in the case of the messenger's arrival, Yulong would be the one with the greatest chance of being chosen, becoming the greatest hope for the revival of the Xiao clan. Yulong says that the elder's words are reassuring, but he fears he is not worthy. However, after the old man left, Yulong thought that he was very perceptive and almost handed his life to him the moment he arrived. He also heard that Xiao Che is not the real son of Xiaoying. He didn't expect that, but considers such information to be rather interesting. Later, in the palace, some people are making preparations for the messenger's arrival. One of the elders coordinates the tasks and urges the servants to clean and organize everything. He looks at the maids and says that the pretty ones should stand in front of the ugly ones. If they offend the eyes of the Xiao sect messenger, he will personally send them to the nearest brothel. The protagonist was sleeping in his bed. When someone passes by and tells everyone to hurry, he gets irritated for being woken up early. When he gets up, he notices something different. He feels something a bit soft in his hand, and a little cold as well. When he looks to the side, he realizes he touched his wife. She lay down beside him without him noticing. When he realizes it, it's already too late, and he ends up getting hit. Xiao Che says they have been married for some time, and he only touched her for an instant. There was no need to hit him for that. Qinghua says she allowed him to sleep in the bed with her because she was very tired, but she didn't permit him to touch her, and states that if it happens again, Yulong will serve as an example. Che tries to argue, saying that Yulong flirted with another man's wife and got what he deserved, but they are different because they are married. The protagonist asks how he will receive the guests now, and Qingwei uses her ice ability on his wound, saying she can help him with the swelling, but he asks if he should thank her for that. Qingwei simply replies that there's no need. She also says that she will not attend the welcome ceremony for the messenger. The protagonist asks why she doesn't want to meet the messenger everyone is talking about. He says that even the clan leader longs to kiss his feet, but Qingwei is too lazy to go, which is not surprising given that she is an Asgard disciple, very stubborn. Qingwei says she heard the master say that the man sent by the sect is Xiao Kuan-yin, and without his cultivation, he is quite ordinary. However, he is a man who relies on the sect and commits atrocities. The protagonist says he will keep that in mind and thinks that even though she doesn't show it, his wife cares for him. Outside, the clan leader waits for the messenger's arrival. Some members say they have waited a long time, but there is no sign of the messenger, saying that the delay shows the arrogance of this sect's envoy. But soon, a servant announces the messenger's arrival, and the clan leader is delighted to finally be able to welcome him. A mega-extravagant carriage approaches. In it is the sect's messenger, Xiao Che, accompanied by 2 beautiful women. He is also surrounded by guards. The clan's men who see him drool with envy, wishing for such a position one day, as they would always have good company. Soon the clan leader introduces himself and welcomes the messenger. After arriving at the location, the messenger settles into his seat to speak with the clan leaders. He says that if it weren't for the death of Elder Xiaozing, he wouldn't have known there was a place like this, where not even birds crap. The clan leader agrees with him. Xiao Che says that the dead are important, and that's why he came there, to fulfill the elder's will. Then, he looks to the side, and slaps one of his companions. Everyone is shocked by such behavior. He tells the woman that he was talking about sad things, so she shouldn't pinch him. Angry and shouting, he tells her to leave the place. Those present think his actions are exaggerated and judge him for hitting the woman. Xiao Che returns to his seat and asks if anyone has a problem with him. However, no one dares to reprimand him. On the contrary, some even praise his attitude. He says that the next day, all the clan members should gather in the courtyard, and no one should be absent, as he will select someone to take back to the Xiao sect. The opportunists are very excited that the rumor is true, some thinking that, even if they are not servants, they would have a bright future if chosen. The protagonist, seeing this scene, thinks that the people of his clan really have no salvation. Xiao Che says that since he came there, a gift for his hosts would not be missing. One of his servants hands a box to the leader, and says that it contains the profound recatalyzation powder, which can increase the speed of cultivation for a certain time. The clan leader is surprised by the gift. The others know that it is a legendary medicine. No wonder the sect is so powerful, and finally, such an item will be part of the clan's collection. When looking at them, Xiao Che concludes that they are a bunch of fools who have never seen the world beyond, and says that for the veins damaged for any reason, the recanalization powder also has an excellent restorative effect. Hearing this made Xiao Che's grandfather think that if he could obtain the item, he could restore his grandson's veins that caused him so much humiliation. After that, the clan leader says that it wasn't easy for the messenger to come here and orders his son Yulong to take him to see the place. Yulong does as ordered and walks with Xiao Che through the clan's main courtyard. He says that despite Floating Cloud being small, it has almost everything that's necessary, especially the local women, who are very charming. However, Xiao Che asks why he is talking about women, and what Yulong thinks of him. Yulong replies that he is full of energy, and clearly doesn't seem like an indecent man. In his thoughts, Yulong says that the messenger's heart is not aware of what kind of person he really is. However, Xiao Che stops walking because he is surprised by something. He sees in front of him a woman who catches his attention. Her unbelievable beauty, as she walks, left him speechless. Xiao Che asks who the girl is and says he has never seen anyone as charming as her before. Yulong says her name is Xiao Che, and she married a clan member who is actually trash with damaged veins, which surprises the messenger. Again, Yulong thinks about the messenger, as he didn't expect him to be interested in Xiao Che, but says that he is the only one who can have her. The messenger, in turn, says that a woman like that should belong to him, and no one else. Immediately after, one of his men warns him, saying that the sect leader specifically warned him not to steal wives or daughters, as that would be bad for him. Xiao Che doesn't seem convinced and says that this is unacceptable. Yulong thinks that the fact the man appeared there without making any noise makes him a high-level expert, and besides that, he is probably very strong. Even a simple follower is already so powerful, making the sect really as strong as they say, leading Yulong to conclude that sacrificing his future with Qingyue would be worth it. Immediately, Yulong says he has a plan for the messenger to have what he wants without resorting to violence. Hearing this makes Xiao Che extremely excited. Yulong says that's not all, as in his clan, there is another young lady who is not behind Qingyue in beauty. Impressed by this information, Xiao Che asks who this young lady is. The fifth elder's daughter, Xiaolingxi, Yulong replies. He also says that she is much easier to obtain, as long as Xiao Che wants, and Yulong will take care of getting her for him. At home, Lingxi speaks with her father, and asks if he saw the people from the sect, commenting that they are very powerful. Her father agrees with her and warns her not to leave the house much, as the messenger is not a good man. She notices that her father seems a little bothered and asks if it's because of the recent visits from the sect. He responds that the sect visitors brought a gift called Deep Recanalization Powder and said it has great restorative power. The girl quickly realizes that this could be used to repair Che's veins. Her father says it is difficult to achieve that result, but the clan chief sees the gift as an important treasure and would definitely not use it on Xiao Che. Lingxi says they can't do that, and that Che is the one who needs this cure the most. But her father says that, in the end, in their eyes, Che has no talent at all. The girl doesn't agree with this at all. She keeps that information in her mind, and decides to sneak out and disguise herself to go after the treasure. At dusk, she leaves her house, trying not to be noticed by anyone. However, she is surprised by someone, and gets very startled, but realizes that it was her own father. He says he knew she would try to steal the recanalization powder, asking if she knows how dangerous that is. If she is caught, the Xiao sect would punish her, and no one in the entire city could save her. Lingxi says she knows that, but little Che's state is lamentable. Having his veins damaged made him despised by everyone. She also states that he has a good heart, and doesn't deserve this. Every time she sees someone laughing at little Che, it's very hard for her. As long as his veins are repaired, and even if she appears as a thief to everyone and is punished for it, she would still be willing to do anything. Her father understands her feelings, but he asks, if something happens to her in the future, who else would protect and take care of Xiao Che? With that, Xiao Lingxi realizes that Che still needs her. Her father says he will do his best to obtain the powder for his grandson, so Lingxi should go back to her room to rest. She apologizes for acting that way and promises she won't try to steal the item again. The next day, the protagonist is walking with his wife and asks how the matter they discussed last night turned out, but Qingwei pretends not to understand. The protagonist quickly tells her not to play around with him like that. Little Aunt calls Che and says they were waiting for him. He and his wife greet her and his grandfather. With everyone present in the courtyard, the clan leader calls for silence, as the sect's messenger is going to say a few words. Xiao Kuangyan says that it seems everyone is there and believes they already know why he came. He states that for him to lower himself and come to such a small place like that is an honor for everyone else. He also says that, in front of the sect, the founder of the Xiao clan is nothing but an insignificant worm. After saying that, everyone is shocked, including the clan leader, the protagonist, and even his grandfather, who heard everything up close. Quickly, the clan leader tries to ease the tension and says that it truly is an honor to receive the sect's messenger there. Filled with hatred and sadness, the protagonist calls the leader an idiot for laughing at the messenger's words, saying that his ancestor should not be humiliated in such a way. Xiao Kuangyan says that, according to Elder Xiao Xing's last wish, he will select one of the people present to take back with him to the sect. He also states that they need to understand that the sect does not accept just anyone. He says that he will personally examine each of them, and they must go in order to show their profound strengths in front of him, as the best one will be selected. Xiao Kuangyan says that, as a reward to the winner, he will give the gift he brought with him on the trip, and tells the clan leader to bring the profound recanalization powder. Hearing that did not please the leader, but Xiao Kuangyan doesn't care and urges him to bring the prize. Desperate, the leader falls to the ground, saying that at dawn the profound recanalization powder left in the medicine chamber suddenly disappeared. The elders present are shocked by this. The protagonist's grandfather is also worried. His daughter, in her thoughts, says she was not responsible. Xiao Kuangyan is furious with this information, and asks who dared to steal the gift brought by the Xiao sect. The protagonist thinks that, given the leader's personality, it's not possible that he would make such a mistake. Besides, this anger from the messenger is obviously just an act. Xiao Kuangyan says that yesterday he showed the item and there were only Xiao clan members nearby. He says that the men are not stupid enough to spread this to everyone. So, he concludes that the thief must be someone from the clan. The leader agrees with the messenger, saying that the person responsible for the item is an old man of about 60 years, therefore, the item would be of no use to him. The protagonist sees that the expression on the leader's face is very fake, and wonders what he is plotting. Xiao Kuangyan asks if the item was stolen along with the box, and the leader confirms. He says that the box contains a unique profound strength mark from the sect, the eagle mark. It just needs to be activated with profound strength and the location of the box will be sensed. One of the men does this. He quickly senses the mark, and goes in the direction he felt. He practically flies past the others, making Xiao Kuangyan happy that it worked. The leader says he needs to see the thief with his own eyes, and when found, he will hand him over to Xiao Kuangyan to apply whatever punishment he sees fit. The messenger agrees. In his thoughts, he already knows who it is and says the punishment will be applied in bed. After that, the servant returns with the box and says it was at courtyard 66, under the owner's pillow. Hearing this, Che's grandfather already knows who it belongs to. The protagonist knows as well. Little Aunt realizes it's her pillow, but she knows she wasn't the one responsible. Xiao Kuangyan sees her in the crowd and realizes that her beauty is just as Yulong said, stating that she is not inferior to the protagonist's wife. He quickly orders his men to tie her up and take her to his room, as he will apply the appropriate punishment for her actions. Furious, the protagonist realizes that from the beginning Xiao Kuangyun's plan was to frame his aunt and take advantage of the situation. Some men of the clan say they couldn't imagine that the girl was the thief, but they affirm that she provoked Xiao Kuangyun's wrath and will now go through a lot. They are holding ropes in their hands, ready to tie her up. Lingxi insists that she wasn't the one who stole it. Her father, in turn, orders the men to stop what they are doing. He immediately uses his abilities to push them away from his daughter. The clan leader is astonished, and says that the old man is disrespecting the sect's messenger. One of the servants accompanying the messenger glares at him. The old man senses his strength, and the man asks if the elder is truly questioning the young master's decision. Seeing him in that state, the old man realizes that this man is unfathomable. Even though he is nervous, the old man thinks it's best to stay calm to avoid making things worse, insists that his daughter is not guilty, and says that all of this is just a misunderstanding. Xiao Kuangyun asks what more could be done in the face of such concrete evidence. The clan leader asks the girl how she could have done such a thing, stating that he is disappointed in her. Lingxi states that she wasn't responsible, otherwise she would have admitted it. Yulong speaks up, saying that Lingxi has always been close to Xiao Che, and because of him, she must have been motivated to steal the item to heal him. Some of the men agree with Yulong, saying that they even doubted she could be guilty, but now everything makes sense. They say that trash like Che doesn't deserve the risk she took, and now, because of him, the girl has provoked the sect's wrath and will suffer the consequences. Unconsolable, Lingxi cries in sadness. However, the protagonist holds her hand, and tells her not to be afraid, because no matter if they believe her or not, he affirms that he will always be by her side. Lingxi is moved by these words, and the protagonist, in turn, asks her to let him handle the rest. Yulong says that Che has an arrogant tone, and trash like him shouldn't go against a representative of the sect. Automatically, the protagonist realizes that Yulong is also behind this. He thinks that the messenger had never seen the little ant before, so he wonders what he really wants with her. Yulong tells Che that if he wants to fight him, he will accept the challenge, but the boy shouldn't blame him for not being kind. The protagonist introduces himself to the sect's representative, saying that his name is Xiao Che. He says that regarding the theft of the item, he has some questions he wants to raise. Yulong thinks that he dared to ignore him and intends to deal with Che soon. Seeing the boy, Xiao Kuangyun says that he is then the so-called trash of the clan, and says that he is very generous, so he will allow him to ask his question. Che asks the clan leader if the gift brought by the master from so far away is truly that important to him. The leader responds that the sect's gift is the most important thing for the clan at this moment. Xiao Che says that everyone knows that the clan leader's temperament has always been calm and cautious and asks if the leader agrees with that. The leader affirms that yes, he agrees. Che says that, since that is the case, he asks, if he is so careful, how could something so valuable like the deep recanalization powder be placed in an unguarded place like the medicine chamber? And what was the leader thinking when he made such a decision? Cornered, the leader doesn't know what to respond. One of the elders asks Xiao Che what he means by that, and how he dares insinuate that the leader planned everything to frame someone. Xiao Che says that the great elder doesn't need to get agitated, as he scared the clan leader so much that he started sweating. The leader thinks that the little trash cornered him, and wonders since when he became so clever. Some of the clan men notice that the clan leader's expression seems a bit distorted, casting doubt on his credibility. The leader responds that there are many medicines in the chamber, and he left the powder mixed among them so that the medicinal energy wouldn't dissipate. But in his thoughts, he remembers that during the night, as a precaution, he read some books about powder medicine and didn't expect that such information would be so useful. Che says that, as far as he knows, the deep recanalization powder has a sweet scent, and asks the leader to verify. The leader smells the box and confirms what the boy said. However, the protagonist says that the item was left in the medicine chamber for an entire night, and there are countless remedies there, so it should have a mixture of scents. This leaves the leader desperate, as he knows the boy is right and wonders how he could let such an important detail go unnoticed. He quickly tries to be clever and says that he has a cold and a stuffy nose, so he smelled it again and, in fact, it has a varied scent. However, being sharper than him, the protagonist says he was lying about the scent and asks where the leader smelled such a varied aroma. Now caught red-handed, the leader becomes irritated with the boy. Xiao Che says that if the leader didn't know any of this, can it be said that the item was really in the medicine chamber? And accuses him of lying. Such an accusation makes the leader very nervous. Little Ant thinks Che is a genius. He, in turn, thinks that in a debate about medicine, he can destroy anyone, as he knows everything thanks to his past life. Xiao Kuangyun thinks the boy did well with his words. In the face of absolute power, what will the leader do now that he's been exposed? He then says that whether or not the leader lied, Lingxi's punishment has already been decided. Outraged, Che says that this is nonsense, as they didn't even know where the item was and are accusing the girl of stealing it, clearly showing that they had planned everything beforehand. He also tells the clan people that they should see the truth and asks everyone to support justice for Lingxi. Che thinks that the truth is in front of everyone's eyes. As long as they're not stupid, they will surely understand. But against his expectations, no one speaks in his favor. This leaves the protagonist very irritated. The clan members think that if the sect's representative said Lingxi is guilty, then it's true, and they shouldn't question his authority. Seeing that he still has authority, Xiao Quangyun orders Xiao Che to be arrested. Irritated, the leader prepares to take revenge on the protagonist and moves towards him. He is surprised, about to be attacked, thinking that the leader should be ashamed of losing the debate, and now resorting to violence. However, before he is hit, the protagonist is defended, and the clan leader is stopped. Xiao Che's grandfather interrupts the leader's attack, and throws him far away from the boy. As he falls, the leader almost hits the other elders. They see him approaching and are shocked. Then they all crash into each other in a pitiful scene. The old man asks how they dare treat his grandson like this, and if they think he has aged that much. The others witness the strength of the old elder, who, despite his advanced age, is still capable of fighting, saying that his reputation is well deserved. Che thinks that the clan has many strong specialists, and that his grandfather won't be able to hold out alone, concluding that he will have to help him. He asks his wife where her master is and why she hasn't appeared, but the young woman doesn't know. The protagonist remembers that he had arranged it with her the day before, and she said that her master was nearby, otherwise he wouldn't have acted like this today. He tells his wife to stop joking and be nice, asking if her master has already arrived and is hiding somewhere. His wife replies that she really doesn't know, so Che concludes that now he's going to die. An elder asks the old man what this means, and if he intends to rebel. But he says he just doesn't want injustice for his family, and definitely has no intention of going against the clan. The elder says that Lingxi is the old man's daughter, so he wouldn't claim otherwise, saying he doesn't believe what he heard. However, the old man says that, despite not being a gentleman, he has always lived justly, and even though he has no great achievements, he has always lived under the light and never harmed anyone. Yulong takes over the dialogue and says that the old man deceived the entire clan for over 10 years and still says he has always lived openly. The old man asks what Yulong means by that. He asks if the old man dares to swear by his late son, Xiaoing, that Che is his legitimate grandson. Hearing this, the protagonist is not at all pleased. Lingxi, in turn, is confused. The old man realizes that Yulong knows something. He reaffirms the question since the old man didn't answer. His daughter asks if Yulong is lying because she can't believe that Xiao Che is not really part of their family. Even Che himself questions his grandfather about it. With no alternatives, the old man just says that although the boy was not born into his family, he has always treated him as if he were his own grandson. Xiao Che is shocked to hear the truth. The other elders ask the old man how he dared to raise a bastard for so long, and if Yulong hadn't revealed the truth, would he have raised him for the rest of his life? Yulong says he always had doubts about how the lineage of his clan could produce trash like Che. Xiao Quangyun immediately tells the others not to wait any longer, and to expel the bastard from there. But before that, Che himself says that he won't trouble the others, and since he isn't part of the clan, he will leave on his own. He tells his grandfather that, even though they aren't related by blood, as long as he allows it, he will always be his grandson. Xiao Che bows in respect to his grandfather. The old man says he will always accept him as part of the family. He tells his grandfather and the little aunt that after he leaves, they must take good care of themselves. Lingxi tells Che not to go, but in his thoughts, he apologizes to the girl, and if he had enough strength, and if he could become stronger, he would have done things differently. Che approaches his wife, and she shows no reaction to him. The protagonist simply asks her to keep her family safe. Qinghua says she will do so. Yulong tells him to wait, as he cannot leave yet. Xiao Che asks what else he wants. He says that the reason Qinghua married him was only out of obligation, and now that he is no longer part of the clan, he no longer has the right to have her hand. Immediately, the others agree with Yulong, saying that the marriage is illegitimate. The clan leader demands that Che hand over the marriage certificate, and then leave from there. Xiao Che doesn't resist and agrees to hand over the marriage document, but says he won't give it to them. He says that as a couple, whether to stay together or divorce is a matter only for the couple, and no one has the right to intervene. Then, he hands the document to Qinghua, and says he will leave the decision to her. If she wants to separate, she just needs to destroy the certificate. But if she still wants to stay married, she should keep the document safe. Xiao Quangyun is satisfied with this and thinks that as long as the marriage dissolves, what he does afterward won't harm the sect's image. He concludes that tonight, Qinghua will be his. Quickly, Yulong tells Qinghua that there are many talented men within the clan and suggests that she destroy the document and find a decent husband. But as he tries to touch her, she dodges, and asks if he is deaf for not hearing what her husband just said. that this is a matter that can only be resolved between husband and wife, and no one has the right to intervene. Yulong is irritated that Qingwei still calls Che her husband. She, in turn, states that Xiao Che is still her husband and asks if he has a problem with that. Because of this, Xiao Kuangyan says that she is very bold, affirming that it's no longer up to her to decide whether to divorce or not. He then orders one of his men to take the certificate from her and destroy it. Immediately, the man goes up to her to carry out the order. However, Xia Qingwei says that the sect's representative cannot handle things with words and now wants to resort to force. The man approaches her, with a great desire to harm her, but he notices something different, and soon after, he is completely frozen. Qingwei doesn't even react to his presence. Others think that on a sunny summer day, it is impossible for snow to fall. Then, a woman appears in the sky, saying that the men of the Xiao sect are getting bolder and bolder, as they are now even interfering in the marital affairs of her disciple. One of the 7 fairies of the frozen cloud, Chuyueli, appears and asks who gave them such authority to interfere in such matters. Everyone witnesses her floating in the air without any external support. They see the floating technique and conclude that this is the legendary Sky Profound Realm. One of the sect men is shocked by the woman's presence, but Xiao Kuangyun, in turn, is captivated by her, and says that since she is here, she too will be his tonight. After saying this, he is immediately slapped by his bodyguard, who warns him that the woman belongs to one of the most powerful forces within the empire. He also says that Xiao Kuangyun's position in the sect is second only to the leaders, and even his father doesn't dare provoke them, stating that if he doesn't want to die, he must behave himself. Qingwei sees her master and greets her. Immediately, the sect's messenger realizes that she actually belongs to the frozen cloud of Asgard. Chu Yuli says that moments ago they wanted to destroy her disciple's marriage certificate. The messenger states that he would never dare, and that it was only a joke. But in his thoughts, he feels frustrated for not being able to have Qingwei anymore. So, he decides to focus on another girl. Noticing that she is vulnerable due to Che's departure, he concludes that, since he has no chances with Qingwei, tonight he will have Lingxi. The master asks if Qingwei remembers the agreement they made, saying that it has been a month since her marriage, and according to the agreement, it's time to return to the Fairy Cloud Palace. Qingwei hesitated to respond to her master. Xiao Kuangyan hears the conversation from a distance, and finds out that the woman wants to take the young girl with her, and since that's the case, he thinks it's better for them to leave quickly, as he won't have her anyway. However, Qingwei tells her mentor that before her husband left, he made her promise that she would take care of his family in his absence. Hearing this makes the messenger angry. The mentor says that this matter has nothing to do with the fairy palace, and that the only reason she is there is solely because of Qingwei. The messenger becomes excited and thinks that Frozen Cloud Asgard does not offer charity, and has no reason to interfere, wishing that the two would just leave soon. Qingwei does not give up and begs her mentor to consider her request. In exchange, she agrees to cultivate at full force when she returns. The mentor says that, according to Asgard's methods, she should have a cold heart, and her husband is only nominal, so she doesn't need to worry about the promise. But Qingwei pleads with her master. Due to her insistence, the mentor considers granting the young girl's request. However, Yulong interrupts the woman, saying that Lingxi committed a crime of theft, so this matter is exclusive to the clan, and despite Frozen Cloud's strength, they cannot interfere in other organizations. The old man tells Yulong that if he knows the matter is internal, why is he discussing it with a stranger, and asks if he still considers himself a member of the clan. Yulong replies that justice is in people's hearts, but in his thoughts, he says he doesn't care if he's seen in a bad light. As long as he can enter the Xiao sect, he doesn't care about Lingxi. Xiao Kuangyan agrees with his stance, and thinks that family matters must be resolved internally, so Frozen Cloud cannot interfere. After hearing the complaints, Chuyueli says that everything is nonsense. This matter bothered her, and she decided that she wants to intervene. Far away, the protagonist walks through the city. Some look at him with contempt, calling him useless trash and asking what he is doing there. They assume that Che was rejected by his wife and was kicked out of his home. After all, she is a flower that doesn't compare to him. However, Xiao Che can only think that Yulong poisoned him and motivated the sect's messenger to set up his little ant, in addition to forcing him to dissolve his marriage and expelling him from the clan, also making his grandfather endure so much humiliation. All of this makes the protagonist reflect. He pulls out the herbs he collected from his internal storage, and vows that he will make Yulong live a life worse than death. Back at the Xiao clan's headquarters, some men comment that the day was quite tumultuous, but luckily the thief was captured. One of them asks the other if he really thinks Lingxi was guilty, but the other responds that no, that the sect's messenger was acting when Xiao Che exposed him. His friend says that, in a situation like that, of course, everyone would want to please the sect. Although the frozen cloud fairy of Asgard made them spare her, imprisonment as punishment was inevitable. The protagonist was there like a ghost and heard everything. The effect of consuming the star concealment herb allowed him to remain invisible and intangible for a while. He quickly uses this ability to enter the pavilion. As he walks, he thinks that Qingwei truly didn't disappoint him. At least his little ant didn't fall into the messenger's wicked hands. The punishment was inevitable, and the girl must be locked in the reflection ravine, and Che assumes his grandfather is probably taking care of her, so for now, there's no need to worry much. Further ahead is Yulong's room, and the protagonist is about to pay him a visit. Yang is flattering Yulong, telling him not to forget him when he enters the sect. Yulong regrets that the plan didn't go as expected, but affirms that the sect's representatives saw his effort. Yang says that his brother has a refined mind and takes him as an example. He carries a drunken Yulong to his room because he can't do it alone. Before lying down, Yulong says that frozen cloud Asgard will only protect Lingxi for a while, not forever. Yang asks his brother if he has other plans in mind. The brother says yes, otherwise the sect's representative wouldn't have chosen him. He claims that a year later, he will bring him back to the clan's main house to take Lingxi, and she won't be able to escape. Yang praises his brother, saying that he is incredible for thinking of everything, and says he will speak in more detail the next day, after he sleeps and rests well. After that, he leaves his brother in his quarters. Yulong thinks that when tomorrow comes, he will be able to enter the Xiao sect. The protagonist watches him sleep, and Yulong has no idea. Xiao Che discovers that he still intends to join the sect and have a prosperous future, and plans to lay his hands on the little ant in a year. But Che laments that this won't happen, because he won't make it until that day. After that, Yulong's blood spills everywhere. A loud scream comes from his room. The clan leader hears the noise, and is astonished, as he still doesn't know what it is. But soon he recognizes that the voice is Yulong's. The clan leader arrives at Yulong's room and sees him wounded. He and one of the elders witness a shocking scene. Yulong's body is stabbed and bleeding. Seeing this leaves the leader in shock. The elder tells the leader to stay calm, because even though the wounds are deep, his vital parts were not harmed. Desperate, the leader orders the elder to go to the medicine chamber and bring the vital restorative powder. Yulong, in turn, feels a lot of pain. His father tries to calm him, saying that the wound is nothing serious, and he will be restored quickly. However, when the elder reaches the chamber, he realizes that the entire place is on fire and many medicines have caught flames. He orders the others to put out the fire, but they say the flames are too intense, making it very dangerous to try to contain them. In his bed, Yulong cries out for a cure. The father tells him not to worry and rushes out to search for medicine, leaving his son alone in the room. Yulong remains lying down, feeling a lot of pain, but suddenly, the door closes. He is startled, as he doesn't know how that happened, but he hears a voice calling him an idiot, saying that clearly someone closed the door. Desperate, Yulong screams and asks who is playing tricks on him. Xiao Che reveals himself, and says that his cousin doesn't even recognize him anymore. Seeing the protagonist in front of him leaves Yulong completely shocked. He asks how the boy got in there and tries to call the guards. But Che says that a big commotion is happening outside, and even if he screams, no one will come to help him. Seeing Che with a blade in hand, Yulong tries to push him away but can't move properly. The protagonist says that he shouldn't waste his strength, as the earlier stab wound left him incapacitated. Yulong becomes desperate and scared of what is about to happen. But the protagonist says that the reason he returned is obviously to settle a debt, and immediately stabs him in the arm. Yulong says he doesn't want to die and begs for his life. Xiao Che says he won't spare him and is just getting started. He states that Yulong should know the consequences of harming his loved ones. He also says that with the next cut, he wants his eyes to never see again. Then, he slashes Yulong's eyes, leaving him blind immediately. Che says that with the next cut, he wants Yulong's mouth to never speak again. And with the next cut, he wants him to lose his lineage, because a despicable person like him is not worthy of having heirs. In the cave where Lingxi is being kept captive, her father keeps watch over her. The girl tells her father to go back home because it's damp there, and he might get sick. Her father says that just thinking that she will be imprisoned there for 15 years, he can't help but worry. Even though she is sad, the girl says that at least she is still within the clan. But Che doesn't even have a place to stay, and it troubles her not knowing where he is, and she asks if he is able to eat. Her father also feels worried, but soon senses a presence and asks who is there. Suddenly, Xiao Che appears and greets them. The little ant runs towards him, and gives him a tight hug. Lingxi wonders if she is dreaming and if little Che really came back. Her grandfather doesn't understand his appearance, and wonders if the clan leader allowed him to return. But Xiao Che says that they would never do that, and he came back on his own, infiltrating quietly. And he also came to give them a great gift. After a while, Yulong's father goes to his room with the vital restoration powder. But when he reaches his son, he realizes that something worse has happened. Yulong is more injured than before. One of the servants comments that what was done to him is terrible and extremely cruel. The elder says that all 4 limbs were crippled, his profound veins are ruined, all 5 senses were destroyed, including his lower parts. He also says that he is alive, but his condition is worse than death. Furious, the clan leader wonders who could have done this. He is on the verge of exploding with rage. His men try to calm him down, but they can't. But they end up noticing that some words are written on the wall. The leader looks at the wall, and notices that it is written with his son's blood. It reads, "To congratulate the old dog for his filthy son entering the Xiao sect, I offer this grand gift. Please accept it with grace." In pure hatred, the leader punches the wall, and says that whoever it is must show up right now. Xiao Che's grandfather doesn't seem very pleased to see him in his current state. Che feels embarrassed around him, and notices that the old man doesn't like seeing his daughter so attached to him. Che says that even though little N hasn't seen him for half the day, he doesn't think she misses him that much to be hugging him for half an hour. He thinks that normally he wouldn't mind this, but now they are in front of the old man, and it's a bit embarrassing. But Lingxi doesn't care, and says that he shouldn't leave without her permission. Xiao Che tells her that her father is watching. She quickly pulls away from him, and tells her father not to misunderstand, that her head was a bit hot, and she unintentionally forgot he was there. The old man asks if they're used to doing this when he's not around, but the girl says that they only have a normal relationship and are not that close. The protagonist feels embarrassed, as he only made it worse with the explanation. The old man, however, says he is not blind and noticed it a long time ago, and says he didn't stop them because either of them is related by blood. Xiao Che takes the opportunity to ask his grandfather about his parents. The old man says that he thought his secret would remain in his heart for his entire life, but now it is time for him to acknowledge his true ancestors. He reveals that Che's real father's surname is Yun. Che realizes that in his past life, the surname given by his master was also Yun, and says it's a mysterious coincidence. His grandfather says that's all he knows and doesn't know the father's real name or where he came from, but affirms that he was very strong. He also says that back then, his son Xiaoying had been attacked while traveling across the Blue Wind continent, but Yun saved him. After that, they started traveling together, and at the time of their farewell, they became sworn brothers, until Che's parents were seriously injured. Xiaoying prevented them from leaving and wanted to take them to a place to hide and heal their wounds, as their enemies were chasing them, but the couple didn't want to involve him. The enemies were relentless, and Che's parents couldn't face them, so Xiaoying used the excuse that he wanted to hold Che and switched him for his own son. Lingxi is amazed by this story and had no idea. Xiaoying, after switching the babies, went to his father and knelt in front of him. He said that he was still young and could have many children, but if Che died as a newborn, his sworn brother would lose his entire lineage. The old man says that in front of a son who values compassion and justice so much, how could he blame him? Che is impressed by the story told by his grandfather, but the old man says that it's not over yet, and after half a month, his son was murdered. The person who killed his son was the same one who was after his sworn brother. The purpose was to force Xiaoying to reveal the whereabouts of the boy's parents. Lingxi is shocked by this information. Che realizes that his grandfather doesn't have white hair for no reason, despite still being in his prime age, and blames himself for everything. If Xiaoying hadn't traded Che's life for the life of his real son, his wife wouldn't have followed him to death, and his grandmother wouldn't have died of depression. Che blames himself for his grandfather losing his wife and looking so old at this age, even though he is at the spirit profound realm. Even knowing that Che had damaged veins, his grandfather never abandoned him. On the contrary, he treated him as if he were his own grandson. Devastated, Che falls to his knees on the ground. He bows before his grandfather for everything he has done until now. But the old man tells Che not to worry too much, and that everything that happened was not his fault. Moreover, when Yin was on the verge of death, he passed away smiling. At least he kept him safe, and when they tortured him for information, it meant that his parents were probably still alive. Che asks if there is a possibility that his parents are still alive. His grandfather says it's very likely. That was one of the things his son said before he died, and he also mentioned the reason why his parents were being pursued. It was because they had a celestial profound treasure with them. The protagonist thinks that he has lived 2 lives, but has never heard of such a celestial treasure. His grandfather also doesn't know what it is. The only information he has is that it is a terrifying taboo, and he tells Che to remember never to mention it in front of strangers. He confirms that he will remember. His grandfather says it's late and he should go, because if people from the Xiao clan find him, another problem will arise. Lingxi doesn't want him to leave, and tries to convince him not to go. But Che says he must, however, tells the girl not to worry, because he will return in 3 years and make the clan kneel before her and apologize for everything. She says she doesn't want Che to do that, and only cares about his well-being. Che affirms that he will stay safe and remain steadfast. He also says that he has a promise to fulfill. The girl is puzzled about this promise, but she remembers that once he said that, if he wasn't already committed, he would marry her. In another scene, at the Xiao mansion, Chu Yueli accompanies Xia Qingwei to her home, and asks if she has said everything she wanted. She replies that yes, and she is now ready to say goodbye to her father and brother. Her mentor says that the next day she will guide her using the profound floating technique, but first, she needs to get used to the flow of her profound energy. Qingwei agrees with her master. She tells the young woman to relax her breathing and calm her heart, then to circulate her profound energy. Chu Yueli notices something different in her disciple, and says that what she identified is impossible. Qingwei is confused and asks her master what happened. She asks the girl what exactly she went through during this period. The young woman doesn't understand the reason for the question. Chu Yueli says that a person's profound vein has a total of 54 profound entrances. The more entrances opened, the greater the talent. With 10 profound entrances open, one is considered an ordinary talent, while with 15, it is considered a high talent. Qingwei recalls that she was born with 21 open profound entrances, and that is already considered an extraordinary talent, but asks if something is wrong. Her master says that now it is no longer 21 open entrances. The girl becomes worried and asks if the entrances have decreased. But Chu Yueli replies that no, instead, all 54 entrances in her body are open and have become the divine veins of celestial spirits. Xia Qingwei asks if that is possible, because according to legends, only a god could possess such talent. The mentor asks if she came across anything unusual recently. Qingwei remembers that Che helped her with some adjustments through acupuncture. Her master says that, by the girl's expression, she remembered something. Certainly, Qingwei says that she met a divine doctor by chance, and he was the one who did this to her. Right after that, he left. As for his name or where he went, she says she doesn't know. In her thoughts, Xia Qingwei states that such abilities are too terrifying, which is why she decided to keep it a secret. Otherwise, Che could be pursued endlessly. Her master says that, indeed, there are many wise men who avoid the matters of the mortal world, and tells her disciple that she can rest. After being alone, Qingwei wonders if the reason Che gave her this immense gift was so that she would not forget him. After he was expelled from the clan, his wife worries about where he might be. The protagonist is still at the Xiao clan's pavilion. He thinks that he would like to stay with his family, but the clan no longer accepts him. But he doesn't want his dear relatives to worry, because he will definitely return within 3 years. He also states that from now on, his name will be Yun Che. After that, he bids farewell to the place for good. Far from the pavilion, at a roadside inn, some men are eating and talking. The sect representatives stop there, and Xiao Quangyun asks if there is still a long way to go before returning to the sect's headquarters. One of them replies that there is still a long journey ahead. Xiao Quangyun says that this place is a dump, and he really wants to leave as soon as possible. The others say that it's the only place available for miles. Suddenly, some men enter the inn, and their leader says he is dying of thirst, asking for the best wine in the house, claiming he'll pay on credit as always. One of the people present comments that they are from the Silver Dragon mercenary group. Another man warns him to lower his voice and not to provoke them unless he wants to die. As they sit at the table, one of the mercenaries points to the table next to them. He sees Xiao Quangyun and says that he has smooth skin and tender flesh, and just by looking at him, you can tell he's a traveler from a wealthy family. He also says that his clothes are expensive and could be worth some good money if resold. One of Xiao Quangyun's guards observes the mercenaries. The messenger says he is so annoyed by them that he's lost the desire to drink, and orders his guard to eliminate them. As ordered, the man goes on his mission. Elsewhere, Yun Che walks along the hot road, saying that his body can't endure such heat. Che looks at a plaque his grandfather gave him, and told him to look for a man named Sikung Han in New Moon City, but Che doesn't know where that is. He also has a pendant, which he heard from his grandfather that he had it when he was brought as a baby to the Xiao clan. He thinks that with this item, he might be able to find his parents and prove who he really is. But in his current situation, he might die of thirst before even finding them. However, from afar, the protagonist spots a place, and recognizes that it's an inn. He immediately runs towards the place, saying that heaven doesn't want him gone just yet. Inside, the people present realize that the sect's representatives are cruel, and want to make sure not to disturb them. The servant tells his master that the job is done. Xiao Quangyun congratulates him on completing the task. Che suddenly enters the inn, asking the waiter for the best drink in the house. But he soon realizes that there couldn't have been a worse moment. He sees all the mercenaries lying dead on the floor, realizing that those responsible for it are the same people who expelled him from his clan, and the sect members did not expect to find him there either. Realizing what he has just gotten into, the protagonist becomes nervous. He enters and, somewhat awkwardly, greets everyone. Xiao Quangyun says that he hasn't seen him for an entire day, and it's been a while. Che also wouldn't want to run into him there, and tries to slip away. Then he starts running and says goodbye. But Xiao Quangyun immediately says that he was humiliated by trash in the clan's pavilion, and now he wants to run away? Outraged, he orders one of his men to go after Che. The protagonist runs, thinking that he just had to bump into the sect's representative, and remembers that he showed off too much before being expelled, so now they will chase him. Not knowing what to do, he realizes that the venomous power of the pearl from his past life has already been exhausted. Now it has no use other than refining medicinal herbs and storing items. Inside the sky poison pearl, there is still a storage of medicinal herbs that he brought from home. Among them, some can be combined into a toxic powder, and with the pearl's ability, it will only take the time of 4 breaths. Though it cannot kill a specialist, it can delay him. But something interrupts the protagonist's thoughts. He notices that one of the sect's men has followed him. The man says that, by order of his master, he will send Che to meet the judge of hell. Che tries to dodge and thinks that 3 breaths of time are still needed. The sect's envoy says that although his master wanted him to torture Che, he wants to be more straightforward. However, the protagonist says he begs for torture. In reality, he's stalling for time to complete the breaths. But the man doesn't want to hear it, and says that the protagonist isn't qualified for that. So Che thinks it's already too late for him. Then he tries to defend himself somehow, when suddenly his hand begins to glow, and following that, a bloodstain appears. The girl who lived inside the pearl, after being absorbed by it, emerges through the protagonist's hand, leaving the sect's envoy utterly shocked. Not only that, but the little girl was strong enough to rip his arm off, surprising even the protagonist. The man's arm, still holding the knife, was completely torn from the rest of his body. Then, the girl throws the piece of flesh onto the ground. Che realizes that the girl is the one from his pearl, and he realizes that she is quite powerful. The sect's envoy wonders how little girl was able to injure him so easily. She just looks seriously at the man, telling him to shut up, as he's too noisy. He still feels a lot of pain from losing his arm, and before he can do anything, he ends up getting hit without even realizing where it came from. Soon, all parts of the man's body explode, leaving only his feet. Che sees this and can't believe it, as with just a scream, she left him in that state. He thinks he might have unknowingly taken in an ancient being, but he remembers that when she entered the pearl, he had seen everything about her body. The protagonist thinks the girl is very dangerous and concludes that it's best not to get involved with her. But before leaving, he sees the girl completely in shock. He realizes that the absolute god-killing poison affected her, and he wonders how a princess could use just this amount of power and receive such a severe side effect. After that, Che notices a strange aura around her, becoming nervous about what might happen. Che then decides to speak to her, asking if she is okay. Jasmine asks if he changed his mind about leaving, but Che says that he just turned around to see the view, and from what he sees, he says that her poisoning is quite serious. However, she gets angry and asks, "So what if I'm poisoned?" She never expected the poisonous pearl to choose someone like the protagonist. She also asks if the spiritual will of this celestial profound treasure is distorted. The protagonist wonders if there is more than one celestial profound treasure, and thinks that the reason his parents were hunted might be because of this. But he concludes that the sky poison pearl came with him from his previous life, and it cannot be related to his parents. Back at the inn where the sect representatives are, Xiao Che says that the dishes are already served, and Xiao Ba has still not returned, stating that it's impossible for him to take so long to deal with a piece of trash. He also says that Xiao Ba must have gotten lost in this strange place, and orders the other servant to see what happened. The other servant immediately obeys the order. The pearl is the 5th ranked of the 7 celestial profound treasures. Within it, there is infinite space, where all poisons can be created, neutralized, and refined. 1300 years ago, it appeared in the world and caused a great disturbance, then disappeared afterward. The girl still cannot believe that something so grand fused with the protagonist. Che tries to use humor to respond and says that the pearl might like handsome men, which is why it chose to merge with him. But his humor is quickly cut short. The girl grabs him by the neck and says she has no time to waste on his nonsense, and gives him 2 options: hand over the pearl, or die. The protagonist says she can kill him now if she's able, and if she really wanted him dead, she wouldn't have risked taking so much collateral damage from the poison to save him. Jasmine asks what the connection is. Che replies that she cannot kill him, because if he dies, she will die too. The reason she can enter the pearl to suppress the poison is because that day she absorbed his blood. Thanks to that, she can enter and leave whenever she wants. In other words, the pearl recognized Che as its owner, and not the girl. Therefore, his life is also her life. If she dies, Che won't be affected, but if he dies, the girl will die as well. That's why, if the protagonist hands over the pearl, it would be like asking to die. The girl releases him, and says she didn't expect Che to be this clever. He says she doesn't need to use so much strength. He also says that Xiao Ba has been missing for a long time, so someone will come looking for him, and then he'll let the girl deal with it. He also says that he saved her by protecting her inside the pearl all this time, so it wouldn't be too much to ask her to be his bodyguard. Che thinks the girl has a very childish behavior but tries to approach her, asking for her name. She replies that her name is Jasmine. The protagonist says that the jasmine flower is cute, small, white, pure, and flawless, and that name suits her perfectly. Jasmine, however, says that this description is inaccurate and that he, besides being useless, is blind. Che asks what's wrong with what he said. She says she will show him what she truly is, and he should say what she looks like. She immediately uses one of her abilities. This makes Che realize that, besides having a murderous intent, she possesses a dark energy. He senses that the energy is terrifying, as she might have killed many people. The girl now asks if he thinks she is white, pure, and flawless. To this, the protagonist responds that she is a blood-stained jasmine. As the two talk, someone approaches. The protagonist asks who is there. Soon he sees one of the sect's envoys. He realizes that Xiao Quangyan sent another one to pursue him, but he quickly notices that the man is acting a bit strange. The sect's servant is mesmerized by the girl's beauty and says that even his master is not qualified to defile her. Jasmine, however, doesn't like this at all. Her enchanting appearance makes the man think she should be placed beneath him and violated. With the intention of doing so, he advances. Che thinks the man is bold enough to say his vile intentions out loud and says that he will soon rest in peace. However, before he can do anything, the girl steps forward and attacks. Upon receiving her powerful blow, the man is completely shattered and is reduced to nothing in seconds. Seeing this makes the protagonist realize that she is indeed ruthless, and he says it seems that her soul has been infected by the poison. Immediately, after using profound strength, the poison manifests. But angrily, she says that it's none of his business. Che says that if she wants him to use the pearl to help her, she just needs to ask, and she shouldn't be so proud. Jasmine says that a princess like her would never ask for help from an ordinary man like him. The protagonist then says that if she's serious, he will leave her alone. Quickly, the girl grabs the protagonist's hand and says that's not for him to decide. She then bites his finger. Hours later, she finishes sucking the protagonist's blood. Che says it feels like his body has been drained and asks if she could do it some other way, without biting his finger. She says that Che is useless, and if he could protect himself, she wouldn't have to risk suffering collateral damage to help him. The protagonist says that if it weren't for him, she would have already died twice, stating that she should better understand the current situation. The tension between them only grows, but Che gives up arguing with her, and says he will find a way to restore her profound veins so that she doesn't have to push herself so hard. Jasmine says she examined his veins and discovered they were damaged a long time ago. Even if he manages to restore them, he will only be slightly less useless. Che asks if she intends to protect him forever. She replies that no, but she can give him new profound veins with the power of a god. The protagonist is shocked by such information and asks if what she says is true. She says she has no reason to lie to him. Che thinks that's true. The girl's strength is immense, and he has never heard about this poison in her body. Perhaps she really does have a way. He then agrees and asks what her condition is. Jasmine says that the first condition is to help her find 3 rare items: an underworld Adumbra flower, 3 profound beast cores from the Tyrant Profound Realm, and 35 kilograms of purple divine vein crystals. Hearing such demands leaves the protagonist bewildered, saying that those things are absurd to obtain, and she must be joking. He also says that some of these items, just by approaching them, would corrode and kill him. Coldly, Jasmine says that it's none of his concern and asks if he will do it or not. Che says he accepts anything to stop being trash for the rest of his life. Jasmine says that the second condition is to reach the Sovereign Profound Realm within 30 years. The protagonist thinks that this is the Profound Realm that can rule the world, and says he can accept these conditions, but he wants to know why. The girl says that a human's longevity is related to their profound strength. Longevity is vitality, the strength of life. Right now, she only has a semi-physical body. Che thinks that the Sovereign Profound Realm is already one of the most powerful existences in this world, and just that would be enough to help her rebuild her body. He wonders if her profound strength is above that, but concludes that it's absolutely impossible, and he must have misunderstood. Jasmine says that the fact he was so scared by just this is the same reason why she calls him an ordinary man, and says that as for the last condition, the protagonist must kneel before the princess and revere her as his master. Hearing this, Che is completely confused. She asks if he is unwilling to do it. Che, with all respect, asks how old she is. Jasmine responds that she is 13 years old. He immediately laughs and asks how he could possibly revere a brat as his master. Jasmine says that in this world, strength commands respect, and judging power by age is the most foolish act. Che says he agrees and can revere her, but she shouldn't expect him to kneel before her. Jasmine asks why. The protagonist replies that he can kneel before the elderly, before a benefactor, and even before his wife, but he cannot kneel before her, as his dignity does not allow it. Jasmine just laughs. Then, she grabs the protagonist's shoulder, forcing him to kneel, saying that such a decision is not his to make. The protagonist feels a lot of pain in his shoulder, as he is subdued by Jasmine. He realizes that her strength is immense, and he cannot break free. Jasmine says that he must kneel and revere her immediately, and she will officially become his master. She will not only replace his profound veins, but will also guide him on the right path of profound cultivation, even if the protagonist disagrees. He says that even if he doesn't give up on his profound veins, he would never bow to a little girl like her. The girl asks if that's really the case. Then she places her foot on his shoulder, and slams him hard onto the ground. She says that if the protagonist feels too proud, he should stand up, and he shouldn't be naive, because without power, he will only be able to kneel before her. And even if she tramples him to death, Che would only have himself to blame for being too weak, as in this world, power is everything. Che thinks that it's true. Without power, he cannot protect his dignity or his loved ones. Jasmine tells the protagonist that from now on, she will be his master, and asks if he has any questions. Che asks if her body hair hasn't grown yet, or if she's naturally a white tiger. She doesn't understand at first, but when she grasps the malice behind the question, she blushes with embarrassment. She immediately moves away from the protagonist, and becomes extremely flustered around him. Che stands up and supposes that this is what they call the disciple's bonus. Angrily, Jasmine tells him to completely forget what he just saw. If her life weren't tied to his, she would definitely make him die without a place to be buried. However, the protagonist says that, in fact, his eyesight isn't very good, and just now, he absolutely didn't see anything bald. The girl notices his sarcasm, and says that he still hasn't understood that not being able to kill him doesn't mean she can't beat him up. With that, she does so, and punishes him accordingly. Afterward, she says that hitting is more satisfying than killing, although controlling her power is a bit annoying. It would be bad if she accidentally killed him. All battered, Che asks if she really needed to be that cruel. But on the other hand, he promptly asks for the new profound veins. Jasmine tells him not to rush, as she's about to do it. Then, she uses her abilities. She invokes a drop of blood on her finger, and the protagonist watches, not fully understanding what's happening. Far away, in the Scarlet Dragon Mountain range, Jasmine talks with Che and says that, according to a book, in the ancient era, the gods fell, and the last true god to fall was known as the evil god. After the evil god's fall, an immortal drop of blood containing his divine power was left behind. If Che could infuse this immortal drop of blood into his body, his profound veins would be capable of generating the power of the evil god. A month ago, someone found the place where the evil god fell. To obtain the evil god's blood, countless people converged on the same spot, fought, and killed each other for its possession. And in the end, it fell into the hands of this princess. Che asks if the reason she was injured and poisoned was due to the struggle for this immortal blood. Jasmine says that it's not as amazing as the records claim. However, as for its purpose, they will only find out after testing it. Then, she touches the protagonist's heart. After that, Yunche's body burns with inner power. Jasmine says that this immortal drop of blood will devour all his profound veins, and then it will generate the profound veins of the evil god. And she would never completely erase all his cultivation, but using it on Che would be quite appropriate. Seeing Che, she says that the pain of his profound veins being devoured is immeasurable. If he screams, it might help alleviate the pain, although the effect would be reduced. But the protagonist says that it is not necessary. The girl asks what he said, as his tone was too low and she didn't hear it clearly, and tells him to hurry and beg by screaming loudly. In her thoughts, she thinks that he shouldn't be looking where he shouldn't, and this is her way of reciprocating. However, the protagonist resists, and says that as long as he can become stronger, this pain is nothing, and beyond the pain he feels, he can already sense a power within his body. Jasmine is astonished that he can still smile with such terrifying pain. He is obviously just an ordinary man and wonders how he can have such strong willpower. Che, despite feeling a lot of pain, thinks that the new profound veins won't be enough. From his internal storage, he pulls out a box of acupuncture needles. He still affirms that not only does he want to possess veins with the power of a god, but he also wants to have a talent comparable to that of a deity. Seeing him, Jasmine asks what he is doing. Che is pricking himself with the needles into his own profound entrances within his body. This does not stop him from feeling pain, but it seems to intensify the flow of power. The girl realizes that he is truly forcing open his profound entrances. The more profound entrances opened, the greater his talent will become. She had originally planned to spend over 10 years to help him open them, but she didn't expect that Che could do it alone at such an insane speed. The protagonist grows stronger and stronger. The energy within his body intensifies further. Jasmine notices that, in less than an hour, he has already opened 54 entrances, and wonders if this is one of the many abilities of the Sky Poison Pearl. After the process is completed, Che says that the pearl only accelerated the process, but opening the entrances was his own doing, and he forgot to mention that he was a doctor. Che says that he feels something has appeared inside his body, and asks what these things he's feeling are. The girl says that these are the 7 realms of the evil god, the 7 gates, which are used to attain secret arts, appearing along with the new veins. By cultivating the profound ice arts, he can transform the attribute of the veins into an ice attribute, while the profound arts can transform them into a fire attribute. Jasmine says that since he possesses the veins of the evil god, his attribute is berserk. The protagonist asks what that is and how to use these 7 gates. In the memory trace of the drop of blood, only the first 5 realms were recorded, perhaps because the evil god believed that opening the 5th realm would be his limit. The girl says that every time he opens a gate, his strength will increase tremendously. As for the method to open them, he just needs to use his imagination. Even if he could open the first gate with his current body, he would explode and die, so Jasmine advises him not to do it. She also says that she's not in good condition at the moment, and needs to return inside the pearl to rest. Jasmine returns inside and tells Che that he's not allowed to disturb her for the next 3 days. Che, on the other hand, says that up until now she has always proclaimed herself a princess, and asks if she could really be a true princess. But Jasmine doesn't answer him, leaving the protagonist hanging. Anyway, he knows what he has to do now. With that in mind, his path of deep cultivation in this life begins here in the Scarlet Dragon Mountain range. 7 days later, inside the Sky Poison Pearl, Jasmine rests as she wished, and finally wakes up from her sleep. She didn't expect to sleep for 7 days, and exits the pearl, wondering what the protagonist is doing now. Outside, near a waterfall, the protagonist trains near the waters, and stands under the waterfall. He tries to remain standing, but can't hold on for long. Jasmine asks if he's trying to kill himself, as being still in the first level of the elemental profound realm, this waterfall would kill him, saying that he is an idiot for trying this, and goes to pull him out of the water now. Che says that it's not necessary, and she doesn't have to help him. Shortly after, he gets up and steps out of the water. Jasmine asks if he has been doing this for the past few days, training in such a dangerous manner. He says more or less. The girl says that he should think more before doing things, as there could be a large rock at the top of the waterfall that could fall on his head. But the protagonist says that he needs more power, otherwise he couldn't protect his loved ones. He states that before he was just a cripple, a person unqualified to seek strength, but now that he's qualified thanks to her, he can't afford to be lazy. Jasmine says that since he's so desperate, she won't stop him anymore. However, before returning to training, he must immediately buy her a new set of dresses, along with underwear, coats, shoes, and hair ribbons. Che asks if this is really necessary, as his current clothes are already quite nice. Besides, they look very natural. But she asks what is so good about that. She says he should be honest with her, and that there is nothing natural about it. Che then agrees and says that once he finishes recovering his strength, he will go shopping. By the way, he asks Jasmine where she is really from and from which imperial house she belongs to. Jasmine replies that she is naturally a princess, but not from the type of imperial families. As for where she comes from, it is a place he wouldn't know even if she told him. Che then asks why she came to Floating Cloud City and if she was forced to flee because of the people chasing her. She says the pursuers are already dead, but she didn't expect them to have a forbidden poison, so she was caught off guard. After that, she went to the current kingdom to find traces of the evil god's blood containing his memories. Che asks about the 5 secret bases of the evil god. Jasmine says that's how she reached the 5 secret grounds. The approximate location of one of them is to the east of the Blue Wind Empire, which was created by him back then. The protagonist asks if the Sky Profound Continent was really created by the evil god. Jasmine says he is an ancient god, after all, naturally having power to do such a thing. And in this continent, he had 5 places of refuge. Before his fall, he spread 5 seeds, 1 for each location, and made it clear that only his power's heirs can find them. Che says that means only they will be able to find them, and asks what exactly these 5 seeds are and how to find them. The girl says that the power around those areas is extremely high, and the protagonist's current power is much lower. So, it's better for him to wait a bit longer before thinking about it again. He agrees. Back at the waterfall, Jasmine says that this time he stayed underwater for 23 seconds, a bit better than last time. Che says he wasted a lot of time and needs to work harder. Jasmine, on the other hand, asks when he will take her to buy clothes. He apologizes, saying it took him about 10 days just to find a village near the mountains. In the end, he ends up going shopping with her and showing her some dresses, but the girl is not pleased with his choices. The protagonist shows a few more pieces, but Jasmine says the dresses in that place are of low quality, not worthy of a princess. Che says this is a small town, and this is the most luxurious store there, telling her she should make an effort to wear something from that shop. The girl says she has already decided not to wear them, especially such coarse dresses. Che, on the other hand, finds something different, and says she can try on an undergarment first before deciding which dress she wants. Furious, she asks if Che is looking for death, saying she could kill him right now. He then says that if she doesn't want the city's clothes, she should wait until they go to the New Moon City to buy them there. Jasmine says he must make sure to buy the best. After that, she notices someone approaching. The protagonist says he didn't feel any presence, but then he sees something, realizing that the approach is coming from above. The girl confirms and says they are a bit strong. A total of 5 people, and 4 of them are at the border of the Sky Profound Realm. And there is one more, half a step into the Emperor Profound Realm. The protagonist starts pursuing. Jasmine asks why he is following them and if he is thinking about asking them to accept him as a disciple. Che says he already has a master, so he doesn't need another one, affirming that they probably came due to the sudden appearance of a mystical beast. Most likely it is a high-level beast, and if they help kill it, they could have a reward. But the girl says the protagonist has a significant power gap. He says that if they manage, he can still try to take something because the mystic core, eyes, claws, and teeth, they will certainly take, but the skin and flesh always have a little left. The girl says Che is not promising at all, and goes back inside the pearl. Soon, the protagonist arrives at the Scarlet Dragon's forbidden territory. On a rock, there is a message saying that all below the 5th level of the nascent Profound Realm must leave immediately. But that does not frighten him, and he decides to move forward. The 5 men go to the location, and one of them says that the fire dragon's nest should be up ahead. The leader asks if he is sure that they have analyzed the power of this dragon accurately. A 10th level celestial beast, the man states, saying without a doubt that the great sage beside him will surely handle it. The sage says that after obtaining its fiery mystical core, the young master's blazing heaven execution technique will certainly reach a new level. Che hears him say that, without further complications, he's confident that they'll be able to pressure the Xiao sect or even the Frozen Cloud Asgard. He wonders if these 5 are part of the Burning Heaven sect, one of the 4 great sects of the Blue Wind Empire. One of them notices someone is following them, but says it's just a brat from the elemental mystic realm, probably trying to take advantage of the situation. He offers to deal with the problem immediately, but the leader tells him not to bother and to focus on the formation. The protagonist realizes that, despite all his caution, he was discovered. Even so, he didn't expect them to notice him. Che thinks it's not worth risking his life for a few leftovers, so it's better to go back. However, he feels a sharp pain in his chest, and feels as if something is calling him. Looking at his hand, he wonders what is wrong. Something coming from the south calls to him. Not only is his mind reacting, but so are his profound veins, concluding that he cannot leave without seeing what it is. He realizes that this place is very dangerous. At any moment, a beast could appear and finish him off. All he has left is to use his last star-concealing herb, but he feels regret because it's extremely precious. Nearby, there is a cave. The place is surrounded by sharp rocks. The men realize their information was correct. Inside, a mystical fire beast dwells. One of them tells the others not to get excited, as besides traps, there could be other unpredictable mysteries, and prepares to lure the creature out of the hole. He uses the blazing heaven blade technique, throwing flames at the entrance of the cave. Flames shoot toward the location, and debris flies in all directions. The creature hasn't come out yet, but it seems to have awakened. From a distance, the protagonist observes the scene. He hears a powerful roar and didn't expect to get involved, despite hiding so far away. Soon, he stops hearing the noise, realizing the creature is about to emerge. The leader of the group also notices this, and tells everyone to get out of its way. Soon, the creature breathes fire in their direction. A dragon comes out of the cave and says that humans are bold, stating that it is audacious to violate this king's territory. The sage didn't expect this remote, nameless place to still be inhabited by a dragon, and says that if it hands over its profound core, they might consider leaving it in one piece. The dragon only replies that humans are greedy and will pay a high price for their arrogance and greed. He, the king, will burn them to ashes. After that, he attacks them, but the sage manages to escape. The dragon breathes fire in his direction, exploding fireballs in the sky. One of them comments that the Dragon King is very strong. The sage uses his blazing heaven blade technique, flame sword, against the dragon. With this, he wields the sword, and tells the others to attack at the same time to finish off the beast. Everyone then decides to attack, using their abilities against the dragon. The king is hit by them, and from afar the battle can be seen. The protagonist feels the heat. Due to the dragon's power, the temperature of the entire territory rises. It seems that sooner or later, the Scarlet Dragon will be captured by them. Jasmine appears and says that Che seriously underestimated the dragons. Although it's a mere low-level dragon, it's powerful, not like the fakes such as the flood dragon and the reptile dragons. True dragons possess high intelligence. They can even hide their true strength. Those men thought they were dealing with just a beast, so they didn't bring many reinforcements, but the dragon is merely toying with them, waiting for the right moment to kill them, making it even more sinister and cunning. The protagonist, however, feels something. That sensation is calling him again. And the source is the cave where the dragon was slumbering. Explosions occur outside the cave. The scarlet dragon attacks the humans. They are having some difficulty dealing with it. The protagonist, in turn, managed to get close to the cave entrance. Jasmine asks if he's trying to get himself killed, as there's no safe place in this battle, and if he gets hit, even a little, he will die instantly. But Che tells her not to worry. With the effect of the star-concealing herb, even someone at the Emperor Profound Realm won't be able to find him, and the nest is just ahead. The girl says that as far as she knows, no matter what concealment technique he has, he'll be visible if touched or struck by anyone. Che just realized that the dragon is not just driving the enemies away, but also controlling the direction of its attacks, so he should stay where he is because it's safer. Jasmine says that even so, a fire attack or a stray rock could end up hitting him, but the protagonist insists that it would be too much of a coincidence. The dragon, in turn, fiercely attacks the enemies, driving them further and further away from its nest. However, one of the flames heads towards the protagonist. When he notices it, he dodges as fast as he can. He barely avoids being hit just as the girl warned, but luckily, he managed to evade. Soon, he smells burnt fabric, and sees that his clothes are catching fire. The girl warns him to put it out quickly. With his own hands, Che extinguishes the flames. After that, he realizes that there is no place nearby to hide, and now that the concealment effect is gone, he will be easily discovered. He then decides to head straight to the cave. But, as he walks to the location, the ground starts to crack, forcing him to run, as there's no turning back now. Fortunately, the distance to the cave is only a few dozen meters, and the scarlet dragon continues to fight intensely. He will have to run at full speed before being spotted, so he does, heading towards the cave. However, the dragon notices him from afar, and is distracted, looking towards the entrance of its nest. The sage tells the dragon not to dare get distracted and asks if it's not afraid that its death will come swiftly. But the dragon thinks there was a mistake, as it thought it saw something near its cave. Upon entering, Che realizes that the place is hot. Humans can't endure staying there for long, but of course, this is not a place visited by humans often, as it is a dragon's lair. The protagonist is startled for a brief moment, because he got a little closer to the nest, and realized there were many fire herbs there. This herb can take decades to grow, besides being very expensive and scarce, only growing in specific places, and it's of great help for magic users. After seeing that there are many of these herbs there, the protagonist is overjoyed, thinking he's going to get rich. Soon he stores the herbs in his pearl storage without any issues. However, he hears a voice calling him a reckless and greedy human, who will soon receive his punishment. He doesn't understand what's happening, but he realizes that the dragon was holding back its power all this time to lure the enemies into a trap. Inside the jewel, Jasmine says that the battle has reached its most intense moment, and he has to get out of there as quickly as possible. But Che doesn't retreat. The girl insists that he must flee, as the dragon might come back and turn him into ashes. Che, in turn, can only focus on one thing. He heads towards what he saw. Inside, he feels something calling him and is getting closer and closer. He walks towards a stone that he found in the depths of the cave. When he manages to touch the object, the stone glows intensely. It had a contained energy inside it, and the protagonist tries to grab it, but Jasmine warns him not to do that, because it has a fire spell sealed by the dragon. Che completely ignores her and grabs the object. He has a feeling that he should possess the item at any cost, and it feels as if it is a part of him. Jasmine says she doesn't know what it is, but one thing she is sure of, he will soon be dead. The protagonist thinks that the battle outside might not be over, and perhaps there's still time to escape. However, when he tries to leave the place, the voice threatens him again. The dragon appears, and it's furious with him for touching a king's treasure. Che says that if it wants the object back, he can return it without any issues. But the dragon is enraged and about to unleash its wrath on the protagonist, when suddenly the girl comes out of the jewel, sensing the danger. Her presence makes the dragon realize her immense power, and it asks who is the owner of such strength. From above, Jasmine stares at it, and tells the dragon that if it doesn't want to die, it should give up. The 5 who are hunting the dragon are outside. The wounded sage asks what is happening. One of them looks inside the cave, and doesn't understand why the dragon spared them and returned there. Another says he heard shouting inside the cave about a very valuable treasure. This makes the sage realize that someone took advantage of the situation and sneaked in there. In the end, it doesn't matter to him, as they were lucky not to be killed. Soon they give up and retreat. Inside the cave, the dragon insists on asking who the girl is. She, however, says that he has no qualification to know her name, she only wants the cave, and if the dragon doesn't want to die, he should flee immediately. The dragon remains silent for a moment. At this point, the protagonist realizes that the girl is truly very powerful, to the point of intimidating a dragon king of the mystical beasts. However, the dragon says that although the girl shows great killing intent, it's just a bluff, and if she were truly that strong, she wouldn't have entered the cave in hiding. Hearing this made Jasmine furious, but the dragon calls her presumptuous for trying to steal his treasure and still speaking with such arrogance. Then he attacks them, saying that they will be the ones to die. The protagonist was already desperate when the girl approached him. She pushes him away from the direction of the fire and takes the lead. A huge explosion occurs in the area, leaving only flames around. However, Jasmine is without a single scratch. Seeing this, the dragon says it's impossible for a child to possess such power. She responds that if he wants to die so much, the princess will fulfill his wish. Che, however, warns her that she shouldn't attack because of the poison in her body. Jasmine, in turn, says it's all his fault, and if she dies he will go down with her. But she focuses and says now is not the time to argue. After that, she unleashes a great energy attack on the dragon, called Imperial God, Divine Execution, leaving the protagonist in shock. Injured, the dragon is stunned by such strength, saying it's impossible what just happened. Immediately, the girl feels the side effects of having used her powers, and Che becomes worried about her. Jasmine falls from a great height, and the protagonist runs to try and catch her. Jasmine is lying on the ground, and the protagonist tries to revive her. He attempts to purify her with the power of the pearl. The girl says it's useless. The purification speed is too slow compared to the rate at which the poison is spreading, and this time she thinks she's really going to die. Worried, Che tries to revive her in any way he can, saying they had a deal and he still hasn't given her a body. Jasmine says she doesn't want to die. She hasn't avenged her mother and brother, and hasn't killed all the executioners. As she closes her eyes, she sees the protagonist screaming. He says they had a deal and she can't leave like this yet. Shocked, the protagonist looks at the girl, realizing that her body is disappearing. Che feels useless for not having trained enough for a situation like this, stating that his life doesn't belong solely to him, but also to Jasmine. But then he notices that he's bleeding, and remembers that the 2 times the girl was in danger, his blood was used to suppress the poison. He concludes that it might work this time as well. He declares that Jasmine will not die now. Then he pours some of his blood into her mouth. However, the blood is spilling out. Che realizes that Jasmine is unconscious. She can't swallow by herself. He decides to transfer the blood mouth to mouth, carefully guiding it with chi. As long as she wakes up, he is willing to do it, no matter the punishment he might suffer. With his mouth full of his own blood, Che prepares for the transfer, and performs the process, hoping it will work. After that, the girl's body is no longer translucent as before. The blood is really taking effect. He decides to repeat the process, and cuts his arm again, performing another mouth-to-mouth transfusion. Still unsatisfied, he repeats the process, transferring a lot of his blood to her. Half an hour later, Che is still trying to revive her. His body is already weak from so much blood loss. He still tries to transfer blood, but can no longer stand. Soon, he collapses beside the girl. Jasmine, however, still hasn't woken up. In a dream, on the Azure Cloud Continent, Che dreams of someone calling his name. A girl calls out to her brother Che, asking if he's awake. She is very worried about him. Seeing his bandaged arm, she knows he hurt himself again. Trying to cheer him up, the girl says she prepared something good for him to eat. After that, she tells her brother Che to wait, as she's almost done tidying up his bed. However, she notices that Che is distant, realizing that he is leaving. In another moment, she is lying down and says that every wound on Che's body is a wound in her heart, and if one day there's a girl willing to stay by his side, then she must be an angel sent to him by the heavens. She concludes by saying that Che should take good care of her. Startled, Che wakes up from the dream, and sees Jasmine awake in front of him. The protagonist realizes that she has regained consciousness, but Jasmine tells him not to move, as he lost a lot of blood and is weak. After that, she asks why he saved her. She also says that it would have been better for him if she died, as he wouldn't have to fulfill the promise between them and wouldn't have any more obligations towards her. Che responds that she used her life to save his, and she is also his master. However, the girl states that she did it to save herself, and if she wants to be reborn, she must do everything possible in the shortest time. The protagonist says that he already knows all of this. But Jasmine is a very beautiful girl, like an angel. Despite being generally cold and sometimes extremely frightening, he never wants her to leave his side. The girl is impressed by his motivations, and says that Che doesn't know what she has done. On her 10th birthday, she killed over 1 million people, and her body was stained with blood. Even her name was given by them, Jasmine the Bloodstained. She also states that she is full of sins, everyone fears her and tries to kill her. She claims to be a terrifying demon. Che, however, believes that Jasmine has always been a kind-hearted girl. The reason she became a demon was because of the important people in her heart, and for such a person, it is impossible to truly become a demon. The protagonist says that it doesn't matter if she is full of sins, what matters is that he will bear them together with her, as he is her disciple. Che also says that she is capable of crying too, while wiping away her tears, saying that her tears make her closer to a little girl than anything else. Hearing all this, Jasmine bursts into tears, saying that Che, while trying to save her, secretly dropped her multiple times, and now even made her cry, stating that he can't toy with her feelings like this. The protagonist is struck by her words, and says that both have committed many sins, and if she is a demon, what does that make him? Because, to avenge his master, he killed over 7 million people in a single day, claiming to be the true demon. After calming down, she says that although Che is no longer in danger, in the coming months she won't be able to use her power, and his blood will no longer heal her. She also says that the pearl he took from the dragon must be one of the seeds of the evil god that she mentioned before, and that he should consume it immediately. Moreover, next time he should not touch her without permission. Embarrassed, Che agrees. In a hurry, she returns inside the pearl to rest. But inside, she thinks she didn't expect to be kissed by him, and she even cried in front of him, feeling very ashamed. She recalls the protagonist saying that he will bear the sins together with her, and thinks that besides her mother and brother, no one has ever treated her so kindly. Outside, the protagonist holds the evil god's seed pearl, and inspects it in detail. After that, he decides to swallow the object. Immediately his body starts burning with flames. Jasmine says that it is definitely one of the seeds left by the deity, and for Che to have found it, one could say he is either very lucky or influenced by the evil god. The pearl starts taking effect, making the protagonist's body absorb everything. Soon, Che manages to control the energy of the first level of the nascent profound realm, and notices that his strength has increased, wondering where the flames are coming from. Jasmine says that it was the seed that transformed his power into the fire attribute, and about the increase in strength, that is just a bonus. In ancient legends, it is said that the evil god possessed the most formidable elemental power within the dimension of primordial chaos. It is also said that the 5 seeds are the origin of his formidable power over the elements, and whoever obtains them all will have total control over the elements. In other words, with this fire seed, Che is capable of controlling the element and possesses complete immunity against it. Jasmine confirms and says that the temptation to control all elements is irresistible. Even she cannot resist, and if their lives weren't connected, she would kill him and steal it from him. Che, however, tells her not to say something so frightening. The girl says she was definitely not trying to scare him, but the secrets within Che's body cannot be exposed, as many want to steal them. She also says that in the present time, where all the gods have fallen, the ability he carries is truly immense. The protagonist is already able to control the fire better, and realizes that he truly has absolute immunity and strength to oppose the heavens. Jasmine tells him not to get too excited. First, he must take care of what's left of the fire dragon, and she will help him collect the treasure. This is a true dragon. Skin, flesh, blood, bones, internal organs, all are precious treasures. However, Che doesn't think he's capable of cutting its skin, but Jasmine says that's why she'll help him. The inside of the sky poison pearl is enough to store the dragon's corpse, and if Che doesn't want to die, he'll have to increase his strength quickly. For the next month, she will teach him a profound skill. The protagonist thinks about such a skill and reflects that coming from Jasmine, it definitely won't be ordinary, and asks her what this skill is. Jasmine replies that it's called the Star God's Broken Shadow. After they leave the area, they head to New Moon City. The protagonist arrives at the location, and his spirit follows his body. Some people who see this are confused, wondering if that's just one person or if something's wrong with their eyes, because it looks like ghosts are following Che, or maybe even his soul. Jasmine warns him not to practice in public and to pay attention to his surroundings. Che asks what's the problem, as she told him to keep practicing the broken shadow to improve his proficiency with it, but she says not everywhere. Soon, the protagonist realizes he was so focused that he didn't notice he had entered the city, and everyone who saw him is astonished. The girl says she didn't expect it would only take him a month to complete the first stage of the Star God's Broken Shadow. Che truly has good abilities. He says it's pretty obvious since he has such a powerful master. She agrees. Che carried a lot of weight on his back and walked a lot, practicing the Star God's Broken Shadow all the time. Now, his physical body is better than before. With that, Jasmine concludes that he should be able to open the first limit. The protagonist asks if it can be opened now. Just a little, Jasmine responds, saying it's better to use it as a last resort, as it could cause permanent damage. Nearby, there are some people around. Che tries to use the skill, but Jasmine asks what he's doing. The The protagonist asks her not to speak to him unless it's important. Just like that, a new Che appears. Jasmine says he did it too easily, even his voice changed. Che, in turn, says that's nothing for a miraculous doctor. He adds that currently, they're poor and without money, and they'll have to sell some things. After walking a bit, he arrives at the Black Moon Merchant Guild, the largest trading chamber on the profound sky continent. The protagonist has some valuable items, and says his grandfather once said there was a branch of the Merchant Guild in the city, and there should also be pretty clothes for girls. Jasmine remarks that it's no wonder he's disguised. It's unlikely for a young man to possess such treasures in this city. Inside the Black Moon Merchant Guild, Che comes across the shops and concludes that everything imaginable can be bought there. He enters and tries to find a place to sell his items. Soon, he stops at a shop, and the merchant asks what he wants. The protagonist pulls out 3 flaming spiritual orbs, and tells the merchant to make an offer. Seeing the items, the merchant is surprised. Taking one of the orbs, he realizes that such an item is of the 10th grade. To refine it into a medicinal sphere, there's a need to harvest ingredients and store the materials properly, select the right tools, and maintain crucial control during refining. It's common for the potency of the medicinal power to decrease during the entire process, especially during the refining process. Even for skilled alchemists, it's hard to avoid loss of potency during the process, which makes pills below the 10th grade quite rare. After hearing this explanation, the protagonist tells the man to stop stalling and make an offer. The merchant says these 3 flaming spiritual pills are the best of the best, and offers 300 purple coins for all of them. Such an offer doesn't please the protagonist at all. The merchant thinks this is the end of the negotiation. The protagonist's cold gaze and silence indicate that he offered a low price. But in his thoughts, the protagonist reflects that the offered value is equivalent to 3 million gold coins, a century's worth of income for a middle-class family. Seeing the protagonist's stern face, the merchant tries to make another offer. However, the protagonist cuts him off and says the deal is done. Soon, the merchant hands him a check for the agreed amount. In his thoughts, the vendor says he will get 3 times the value when reselling the items. The protagonist wonders how long it will take to spend all of it. Both think they came out on top. Seeing the vendor smile, the protagonist thinks maybe the vendor made more money than he did, so he decides to pull out a mystical core, placing it on the table and asking for the vendor's offer. The item shines so brightly it almost blinds people. Some passers-by become curious about what is being negotiated. The vendor's eyes almost glow when he sees the item, as he recognizes it as the core of the mystic Dragon King. Jasmine says he's crazy if he's thinking of selling the item, but Che says he's only using it to impress the vendor and steer the negotiations in his favor. Soon, he tells the vendor to make an offer quickly. He tells the esteemed customer to please wait a moment. As for such an important matter, this lowly man does not have the authority to make such decisions. Quickly, he calls another vendor and says this is an important matter, there is a mystical core. Pu Lao, the expert, appears, and says the other vendor needs to control himself, as how could a mystical core make him so anxious? He also tells him to notice the people around. They must think the Black Moon Merchant Guild is running low. Up until now, Pu Lao hadn't seen the item, but when he sees what it is, he notices that it's a dragon core. The other vendor says that just a moment ago Lao scolded him, but now he's shouting even louder than him. Che, still in disguise, says that a mere dragon core caused such a commotion, and the guild is getting better by the day. Pu Lao tells the customer that he doesn't know if it's possible, but asks if he could share his honorable name with them. Angrily, the protagonist says that the old man is responsible for conducting business transactions, and since when does he ask such things? Lao senses a terrible murderous intent coming from the protagonist, and wonders how many people he must have killed. He then corrects himself, and says he only wanted to show how incomparable the power of someone who can kill a dragon is. He also says that dragon cores are extremely valuable throughout the entire empire. Only one should appear every 100 years, and asks why the customer wants to sell it. He replies that he just wants to get rid of something he doesn't need. The vendor says the item is very expensive, and even if he wanted to buy it, he couldn't. In his thoughts, he questions the protagonist's true motives. Che then takes the item off the table, since they're not going to buy it. He asks what kind of person Si Kong Han is. Pu Lao says that there's only one person he knows by that name. He's the great elder of the New Moon Mystic House, a fair man with great influence in the city. The protagonist bids farewell and leaves, thinking he has already gotten everything he wanted and should move on. Lao says he's welcome to return whenever he wants, and that he is truly an important person, possessing such an imposing manner. Jasmine tells Che not to leave yet, because she wants the red dress, and he must buy it for her. Che says she should have told him earlier, as he just finished negotiating, and if he goes back now, he'll lose face. However, Jasmine says she doesn't care about that, and makes him turn back. The protagonist points to the dress and asks how much it costs. Lao says that the Lucian crimson dress was made for 14-year-old girls, It has a small and exquisite style, so it wouldn't fit his wife, but he says it's for his daughter. Jasmine gets irritated at this. The dress not only has a beautiful style but is also decorated with 81 blood-red crystals. Che thinks that such adornments are a waste. He thinks that he just got rich and is already going to spend it, even considers asking for a discount, but doesn't want to lose face. The vendor says that the presence of the bearer of a dragon core is an honor for his store, and that the Lucian Crimson already belongs to him, in the name of their friendship. He also says that to always have the preference of such a great man, 500 purple coins are nothing. The protagonist freezes upon hearing the price, but since he's getting it for free, he takes it. Immediately after, he says he won't forget the gesture and quickly leaves. The old man's assistant says that no one in the city has heard of the protagonist before, and when he entered, he analyzed his power, and it seems like he barely entered the nascent profound realm. But Lao says that this just shows how inexperienced he is in analysis. Because for someone who hunts an authentic dragon, restraining his power is easy, and the assistant still has limited intuition to sense a terrible murderous spirit. He also says that it's necessary to have killed at least 1 million people to have an aura like that, and it cannot be hidden. With that, the assistant becomes very scared. Outside, Jasmine is still angry because Che called her his daughter. He tries to defend himself, saying that he couldn't tell the truth in such a situation, considering that the dress he gave her isn't bad. She agrees not to argue with him, but Jasmine says he exposed the dragon core in the guild and asks if he isn't worried about being robbed. Che replies that the more he shows he doesn't take the core seriously, the less they'll dare to steal it. The girl says that the shop owner is not so easy to intimidate, but he was afraid of Che's murderous aura, and asks what's with the aura around him. He thinks that, for a moment, it was so intense that it rivaled his own murderous aura. The protagonist thinks about it for a while, and remembers his dark past. He also says that if he told her the truth, she wouldn't believe it, but he assures her that they are the same. After that, they arrive at the New Moon Profound Palace. Che says that his grandfather informed him that Sikong Han should be there, but from afar, he hears someone calling him brother-in-law. He quickly recognizes that the voice is familiar. When he looks back, he sees that his wife's brother is there. Yuan Ba runs toward the protagonist, and does what he always does. He hugs Che very tightly, and Che says that his sister will end up a widow. Yuan Ba says that he's excited because he hasn't seen his brother-in-law in a long time. 6 months ago, he heard that Che left home, and since then, he's been looking for him, and now he sees that his brother-in-law is fine. Yun Che tells his brother-in-law to rest assured because he has 7 lives and has known him for more than a decade, and he still hasn't realized how lucky he is. He asks Yuan Ba how he got there. He replies that he entered the first class of the New Moon Profound Palace, where only the most talented can enter. The protagonist asks if Yuan Ba's talent is sneaking in through the back door unnoticed. Yuan Ba responds that yes, and asks what his brother-in-law is doing there. Che replies that, honestly, he also came in through the back door. Jasmine asks who Yuan Ba is to Che. He replies that he's his best friend and is 15 years old. The girl says that he has the Tyrant Emperor's profound veins. Che asks if she just heard the name and already made such a connection. She says that Yuan Ba's veins are quite specific. Their structure is twice as extensive as that of a normal person. From where she comes from, people who have these veins dominate a region and become emperors. But in this noble land, he may spend his life without reaching his limits. Knowing this leaves the protagonist a bit upset. They go to the house of the great elder of the New Moon Profound Palace, Sikong Han. He says that Yuan Ba informed him that Che was looking for him. The protagonist introduces himself as Yun Che, from Floating Cloud City, and asks the elder if he remembers an old acquaintance named Xiao Lai. Immediately, the elder recognizes the name, and asks if Lai is in the city. But the protagonist says that his grandfather is still in Floating Cloud City, and it was he who sent him to look for Sikong Han. Che hands his grandfather's plate to the elder, and Han mentions that 7 years ago, if the good Xiao Lai hadn't saved his son, the Sikong clan would have perished with him. Yuan Ba says that his brother-in-law's name is Xiao Che and asks why he changed his name. The protagonist says he has no connection to the Xiao clan anymore, and explains further later. Han says he heard about the incident in Floating Cloud City. The Xiao family must be blind. He also says that Che has already reached the first level of the nascent profound realm, and he cannot believe they rejected a boy like him with such high potential. Yuan Ba asks how that's possible because his brother-in-law had damaged veins since he was a baby and couldn't be in the nascent profound realm. Che says it's a long story, but he is indeed in the nascent profound realm. Han asks to test his meridians and potential. The protagonist asks if that will be enough to enter the New Moon Profound Palace. Right after testing him, Han identifies that he's only 16 years old and is at the first level of the nascent profound realm, with 16 open entries. Yun Che thanks him and says that if the elder was already surprised with the 16 entries, he'd probably be shocked if he hadn't hidden the other 38. Han asks if he really wants to join the Profound Moon Palace, as with his talent, he could waive the exams and even let him go straight to the first class. The protagonist says that would be very good for him. Han doesn't waste time, and grabs an identification plate, saying that this is the proof he needs, and from now on, he is a disciple of the New Moon Profound Palace. He also says that the admission ceremony is a huge waste of time, and that he will skip this step. There will still be a banquet later. If Che is interested, he can go there. Che asks why the elder left in such a hurry and worries that he might have taken advantage of him. But his brother-in-law says that students like him are usually recruited in this way, because larger sects could recruit them first, and the New Moon Profound Palace has no chance against them. The elder quickly made that decision. Che then concludes that Han really took advantage of him. Jasmine asks the protagonist how long he plans to stay there. He responds that he will wait and see, as this seems to be a good place to train. Yuan Ba says that the protagonist can obviously rely on his strength, yet still tricked him by saying he would enter through the back door. Che says he didn't know it would be so easy to join and asks about the banquet the elder mentioned earlier. His brother-in-law responds that it is a welcoming dinner for the sect's new leader, and other sects will send representatives to attend. However, the New Moon Profound Palace always ends in disgrace. In such banquets, disciples from the invited sects come with the intention to challenge them. At the last banquet, there were 10 challenges, and they lost all of them, humiliating the former leader. Yun Che says that it's obvious the others tried to shame them to remind everyone who the real masters of the city are, but losing all 10 matches is too much. Yuan Ba tells Che not to misunderstand. It's not because they are weak, but because the opponents are too strong. The sect might have been founded by the imperial family, and the others have a long history, possessing resources and knowledge that surpasses the sect here. Additionally, Yuan Ba's sect was founded to attract talents to join the imperial family. Che says that high-potential disciples are usually proud and arrogant, and their strong desire to join the big sects far exceeds the desire to join the imperial family. Yuan Ba confirms and also says that the main reason is that there are 2 sects the imperial family doesn't dare to offend, the Xiao clan branches and the Blazing Heaven sect. To the protagonist, this story of subsects sounds interesting. They are like outer disciples who are not on par with the main sect, being considered expendable by the main sect members. Indeed, the Xiao branch is comparable to a subsect, like younger siblings of the main clans. If even subsects are so influential in New Moon City, the main sects of these 2 subsects must be very powerful. Yuan Ba says that the New Moon Mystical House is not to be underestimated either. This year's banquet will not end like the one 5 years ago. Che says that from the description, it seems that only the younger generation should show up at this dinner. Of course, Yuan Ba responds, pointing at those who are arriving, showing a veteran approaching. His name is Liu Wu. He is only 17 years old, yet he is already at the 3rd-class mystical level. Yuan Ba admires his muscles, but Yun Che says that the man doesn't seem as big and strong as his brother-in-law. The brother-in-law shows Che a man in white robes and says that he is even stronger. His name is Sui Orin. He is 18 years old but has already reached the 5th class of the mystical level. Not only that, but he also has a graceful and elegant style, overflowing with talent, a model to be followed. However, Yun Che thinks that this man has no talent at all and is reading a vulgar book. Yuan Ba says that the greatest geniuses of the New Moon Mystical House are the veterans Murong and Xuero, especially Lan Xuero, who is only 18 years old. However, the beautiful goddess is already at the 8th class, the number 1 in the sect, and she is friendly with those who approach her. Yun Che says that his brother-in-law described that guy reading a vulgar book as talented and wonders if the definition of a goddess might have the same accuracy. But then he hears a feminine voice. Lan Xuero appears near him. The protagonist realizes that the girl is truly beautiful, and concludes that this is the so-called goddess Lan Xuero that his brother-in-law mentioned. Yuan Ba asks the veterans Murong and Xuero what they are doing there, and says that he and his brother-in-law were heading to the herb hall to get some medicinal items. She then asks if the protagonist is the one. But before she can finish the question, he introduces himself, and says his name is Yun Che, and asks them to be patient with this newcomer. Yuan Ba says that the protagonist is his brother-in-law and that he will be joining their sect, staying in the same class as them. Xuero says she didn't expect such a handsome freshman to join her class, and that the pretty girls in the class must be very excited. But she notices that Yuan Ba called him brother-in-law and asks if he's married. Yuan Ba confirms, saying that even though he's only 16, he married his older sister. The girl says that must be because his wife is very beautiful. They laugh at this, and Che, changing the subject, says she's not there, and asks if that's correct. She confirms and asks how he knows. Yun Che says that the atmosphere in New Moon City is rotten and the weather is hot, not capable of creating a sweet and beautiful girl like her. The girl becomes all excited by such a compliment, saying that Che is not only handsome but also good with words. She also says it's a pity that he's already married, otherwise she might try something. Che, in his thoughts, says that this is not a problem because his wife wouldn't mind if he found a few more. Soon, she says goodbye to her new classmate and mentions that she still has something to say, so she will go ahead, and they will talk later. The protagonist thinks that this girl is elegant but not arrogant, and exudes a gentle and sweet feeling, making her hard to resist. However, a hand on his shoulder interrupts his thoughts. Murong says that it's not yet clear to Che his current position, stating that he's not worthy of talking to some people around there. Che says he barely exchanged a few words with Senior Shuero, and Murong states that he doesn't know his place. Murong asks what he means by that. The protagonist says that the girl didn't even look at Murong when she left, which is a sign that she doesn't care about him. However, Murong is becoming jealous and is mistaken about his own status. He becomes angry, calling the protagonist a sharp-tongued brat, and says that he'll remember him, warning him to keep his distance from Shuero, because there's no shortage of ways for him to get rid of Che. Ba says that the guy is very arrogant just because he's the mayor's son, and tells his brother-in-law to be careful because he can be quite ignorant. Che says that the fact that he's the mayor's son makes sense, but he says he wants to forget about it for now, and he has something important to discuss with Ba, saying that from now on, he should stop calling him brother-in-law, because it seems there are many beautiful girls in his class, and if he's called brother-in-law, it'll ruin his chances with them. Ba says that he already has his sister, and if he goes after others, it won't look very nice. However, Che says that his sister said she doesn't mind if he looks for more wives. Besides, it's not clear yet if he'll be able to see his wife again. He states that all men have two dreams in life, to dominate the world and women. One is to show ambition, and the other is to create good memories to look back on. Che says that if he can't at least conquer the women he desires, world domination is nothing more than standing at the top of the world in loneliness. Ba says that he didn't understand what he said, but it sounds amazing, and asks if he can't call him brother-in-law, what should he call him from now on? The protagonist replies that anything is fine, just not brother-in-law. He tries using other terms but still calls him brother-in-law. Che gets annoyed at this. Ba apologizes, saying it was unintentional. After that, in the New Moon Mystic Palace, they enter the main hall. Che notices that everyone there is quite strong. Ba says it's because they are the elite of their sects. One of those present calls the two over and says that their seats were saved. He also mentions that if there are matches later, they should watch closely and learn what they can because they are new, and no one would challenge them. A senior says she's never seen Che before and asks if he's new. Someone replies that yes, and says that Elder Kong has taken a liking to him. The girl approaches the protagonist and asks if he is the newcomer. He responds affirmatively and introduces himself as Che, saying that he has just joined the sect. Seeing his face up close, the girl blushes deeply. She says he looks so young to have reached the mystical level and is not surprised that he was invited to the banquet, besides being very cute. Ba says that this is mandatory for his brother-in-law, and the girl is astonished to learn that he is married. Embarrassed, Che says that she must be married too, since she is so beautiful. However, she sighs before answering, and says she will not marry so young, and finally introduces herself as Hong Mai, 17 years old. When she leaves, the protagonist, irritated, says he will look after Ba in the future. He apologizes, saying it slipped out of his mouth. After that, a man named Taijong Tsung, from the Iron Spear sect, introduces his son, Taihing Jun, whom he brought to congratulate the new leader of the New Moon Mystical House. The leader welcomes everyone there. Taijong tells the host that he must be doing well, as they barely know each other, and he was already left speechless by the elegance of his quarters. He also says he decided to bring his humble son, and hopes the host doesn't mind. Leader Kong says he doesn't mind, as the master of the Iron Gate personally coming is a great honor, besides having an impressive talent and an unusual presence. Ba tells Che that, besides the Xiao and Blazing Heaven subsects, there are 5 other sects stronger than the Mystical House, and the Iron Spear is one of them. Che says that both are treating each other too nicely, and sees no sign of rivalry. Ba replies that members of the Iron Spear always know how to behave and have a good relationship with the Mystical House. As for the others, it is different. The representative master of the Cloudy Sun sect introduces himself, and says they congratulate the host on his recent promotion. All the other masters appear and do the same. When Junior Xiao Luo Qing introduces himself and greets the host, Ba can't believe he's there and says he is the young master of the Xiao subsect, the acclaimed number 1 among the juniors in New Moon City. Besides being the undisputed number 1 in terms of talent, he is only 16 years old but has already reached the 10th class of the profound level. For him, confidence is an understatement. Che understands that he is someone strong for his young age, and concludes that it's no wonder Shuero seems troubled. As the number 1 of the Mystical House, a truth is hard to swallow. The leader of the house says it is an honor to have everyone there, and thanks them for their presence and the time dedicated to such a gathering, making a toast in celebration. One of them comments that the host is being very polite. Some talk about whom they will choose to challenge later. A veteran even says that it doesn't matter since there's no one on his level, and that in the arena, he won't show mercy, ensuring that at least they will leave crippled. Shueroa thinks that the others were meticulously chosen by their sects, and only the cream of the crop came there to show everything they have. Even if she can defeat an opponent of her age group, she doesn't consider herself capable of turning the tables alone, and thinks that the tragedy from 5 years ago will repeat itself tonight. Jasmine, inside the jewel, tells Che that the atmosphere is quite subtle and it seems like she's going to witness a great show today. The protagonist comments that the disciples of his current sect seem very nervous and wonders what their problem is. Jasmine says that, at the same age group, the disciples of the New Moon Mystical House are 2 or 3 levels weaker than the other 7 sects present here. This fact surprises the protagonist, saying that half a level higher is still manageable, but 1 level higher means no chance. The princess says that those from the Blazing sect and the Xiao clan are, on average, 4 or 5 levels stronger, making it impossible to beat them unless they are at most 2 to 3 levels above. One of the guests says that until now, they are just eating, but something is missing, and asks if the host would allow him to say something to everyone. Another man agrees and wants to hear what the mystical sage has to say, as by the host's expression, he concludes that he also thinks something is lacking at the party. The sage says that, as the new leader, the host may not be familiar with the strength of his disciples, and asks him to let the young ones test their abilities to liven up the party. He concludes by saying that the host will not only have the chance to assess his disciples, but it will also be a good opportunity for them to gain a good reputation in the city. The host still isn't sure about it, and says he wants to think it over. They insist on what they want, and in this case, the one who suggested the idea says that he wants to be the first to point someone out to start. Looking at the host's expression, he concludes that it seems like he is confident about it. Yun-Che thinks that old men only want one thing, and the host doesn't even have the chance to refuse this idea. Xian Yu, from the Mystic Heart sect, 16 years old, steps forward and asks the esteemed host to choose his opponent. After introducing himself, the young man says that no one there has the guts to face him. The leader thinks that the young man may be only 16, but he has reached the second-class profound level. In his sect, those of the same age are still at the first level. However, one of his own can't hold back any longer, and stands up from the audience, introducing himself as Li Hao, the opponent. Xian Yu says that he talks too much, and will give everyone a real demonstration. Li Hao, in turn, prepares to attack, and charges towards his opponent. However, Xian Yu summons one of his abilities. Seeing this, the host of the event is astonished. The challenger easily blocks Li Hao's attack, then displaces his fist. Hao realizes that he's no match in physical combat, and needs some distance. But Xian Yu tells him not to back away yet, as he hasn't even used his full strength. Li Hao notices his approach. Then, he's struck by the opponent in the abdomen, and flies backward after being hit. Lying on the ground, some classmates go to help him, and they take him to get treated. The others think that Li Hao is only 1 level lower than Xian Yu, but he didn't even last long, wondering what will happen to them moving forward. Xian Yu asks who from the Mystic House will be his next opponent. The others realize that after one victory, he's already arrogant, but conclude that it's because of the uninteresting opponents from the New Moon Mystic House. His classmates say that Li Hao is the strongest among those in his age group. One of them considers sending someone older. However, the first one says it won't help, besides not being honorable to win that way, and doesn't want to imagine what would happen if they lost. Arrogantly, Xian Yu asks how no one has stepped up to fight him yet, saying that the Mystic House members are so cowardly that he'll have to choose someone himself. The guys from his sect tell Xian to pick someone quickly, and if he accidentally chooses someone older and wins, it'll be even better, making it amusing for them and shameful for the others. Thus, Xian Yu points at a big guy and says he seems like a strong veteran and must have powerful punches. Yuan Ba hesitates, unsure if he should accept the challenge. Yuan Ba still doesn't understand if he was really chosen, but the opponent says that a veteran can't refuse a challenge. Xian Yu's master says that in a big school like this, there isn't a brave enough person to fight, and asks if the boy is really a disciple there. The leader responds that Yuan Ba is indeed a member. Despite his large build, he is only 15 years old, being the youngest member. After hearing this, the master is incredulous. Yuan Ba thinks there's another junior wanting to learn from him, making it seem like he's become a senior instead of being the little brother of the entire school. His leader says that a disciple from the Mystic Heart sect wants to practice with him, and as a senior, he can face him without worry. He also says that losing to a junior 1 year older wouldn't cost much, but he should be careful not to get hurt. Yuan Ba says it's fine because his profound techniques aren't great, but he has a resilient body. He turns to his opponent, formally introduces himself, and says that he won't take on the role of a senior, so he can just call him Yuan Ba. The others from the Mystic Heart sect say that Yuanba is only at the 6th basic level, nothing but trash, and if Xianyu doesn't defeat him easily, he will lose face. Yuanba tells the opponent to be patient with him and charges in his direction. But seeing the opponent's advance, Xianyu says that a basic level trash is not worthy of fighting him. Then, he grabs Yuanba's arms and throws him away as if he were nothing. He walks over to the fallen opponent wanting to fight more. However, Yuanba says that he is down and gives up the fight. Even so, the opponent doesn't want to stop. The protagonist, watching everything from the audience, yells at him to stop. But Xianyu doesn't listen and hits Yuanba hard. Che stands up and goes to him. Fallen, Yuanba begs for help, and Che tries to aid him. He tells Xian that this is a friendly match, and he should have stopped when it was clear he had won, as Yuanba had already admitted defeat. But Xianyu ironically says that his opponent was out of breath and didn't hear him say he surrendered, so he should have shouted louder, and that's not his fault. His friends agree, saying that this kind of thing happens and that they are so weak that just one move is enough to defeat them. Che lifts Yuanba and asks Lan Shuerua to help take him for treatment. She then steps forward and agrees to help. Soon, the girl takes Yuanba away. The protagonist says that just because Yuanba couldn't speak to surrender doesn't mean he wasn't already giving up. He also tells Xianyu to remember this, and that he will be his own opponent. Some wonder who the protagonist is, as it seems his energy density is superior to Li Hao's. The host says they shouldn't think too much, as he is one of his disciples and just joined the sect today, besides being the grandson of a great friend. He thinks that Li Hao against the opponent was a disaster, but Yun Che's power is incomparable, and if he makes a mistake, it will be a disgrace to Xiao Lai. Yuanba tells the protagonist to be careful, as the opponent is strong. Xianyu realizes that they already know each other, and says that the protagonist just entered the primary profound level, and can't fight against him. His friends start laughing, saying that Che will be easily destroyed like the others in his sect. Xianyu confirms the protagonist's name, and says that he shouldn't stand still like a statue, and if he wants to start, he can go ahead and attack. Because if he attacks first, Che won't have a chance to counter. However, when he notices the protagonist's movement, it's already too late. Yun Che lands a powerful slap on his face, knocking out a few of his teeth. With the force of the blow, Xianyu is thrown far away, and with just one hit, he is down. Now his friends are shocked. The spectators wonder if that was a mystical body technique, and if the host clearly saw Che's movements. The leader says absolutely not. He's never heard of another technique executed so well. Xianyu stands up and says that he let himself get hit on purpose to let Che lose with some dignity. However, the protagonist simply says that the opponent is an idiot. Furious, Xian charges for an attack, saying that Che will die. He prepares to land a punch on him, but he realizes that Che's reflexes are sharp, as he no longer sees him in front of him. Soon, Yun Che appears and counterattacks, landing a second blow on the opponent. Everyone witnessing this is impressed by the protagonist's strength. The members of his sect cheer him on, saying that the opponent's face is unrecognizable and Che should finish him off quickly. Xianyu thinks that the protagonist was in front of him, but in a second appeared at his side, wondering what kind of technique he uses to move. For his part, Yun Che recalls that his opponent had just said that he would finish him off in at most 5 hits. But he was the one getting beaten, and so far, it's only been 2 hits. Xianyu doesn't back down and says that until now Che is the only one to humiliate him like this, so he will kill him slowly. However, Yun Che lands another hit on his face. This made the opponent even angrier. The protagonist lands the 4th hit on him, delivering another slap to his face. Furious, Xianyu gathers strength to fight back, and uses a technique called 1,000 Spectral Fists of the Violet Sun. Lan Shuerua, from outside the battle, realizes that this technique is definitely one of the most powerful moves of the Mystical Heart sect, and the protagonist must be careful. The technique uses 3 chi points: Violet Sun, Central Palace, and Heavenly Lake, allowing the user to consolidate energy while using the Violet Sun point as a pivot. If the artery of the Sun point is interrupted, the other points will lose stability, and all the profound energy in his body will be temporarily disordered and even paralyzed. The protagonist is aware of all this. Soon, he hits the opponent exactly where he should, causing the Violet Sun to become blocked. Yun Che asks if the esteemed senior student Xianyu still wants to exchange a few blows. Xianyu tries to say something, but before he could finish, the protagonist hits him again, this time with a very strong punch to the face. Soon he is lying on the ground in front of his friends. They say the result of the fight was already clear, and Xianyu had even surrendered, so the protagonist is being cruel by attacking him again. However, Yun Che says that someone earlier said that to surrender, one must speak loudly and clearly, and asks if they heard Xianyu surrender. He also says that he didn't know the disciples of the Mystic Heart sect were so soft, and with just 5 hits they start coughing up blood. One of them tries to attack the protagonist, but a companion warns him that it would be shameful for a 20-year-old to fight against such a young opponent. On the other hand, the members of the New Moon sect celebrate Yun Che's victory, saying that his opponent got what he deserved. The Mystic Heart sect members appeal to the host, saying that they came here to offer sincere congratulations, yet their disciples were cruelly humiliated. Yun Che says that Xianyu didn't stop hurting the members of the New Moon Mystic House. Only a blind person couldn't see that besides injuring them, he even said humiliating things, and asks if only they have the right to do such things. However, they think it's not that simple. Members of another sect quote an old saying that the newborn calf isn't afraid of tigers, stating that Che is quite ambitious, fitting with his talent. But unfortunately, he is stupid and dares to offend the Mystic Heart sect like this. Does he really think the New Moon Mystic House can protect him? Some think that Xianyu's defeat left the New Moon House with plenty of breath to talk nonsense, and Che did the same as his opponent after winning the fight. Yun Che states that only the dishonorable humiliate others, and if the 7 great sects still don't understand, he asks them to come to the arena because he will continue fighting. Hearing this leaves everyone shocked. Murom, who is watching, thinks the protagonist is a complete idiot, because not only does he talk too much, but he's also provoking the great sects and pretending to be more than he really is. Even the leader of the New Moon thinks Yun Che has crossed the line, and if he continues like this, he won't be able to stop him. From the audience, someone shouts that trash like Che, who just entered the first profound level, dares to be so arrogant. He then says that he's going to teach the protagonist a lesson. He soon steps into the arena, introducing himself as Yanming from the Cloudy Sun sect, 16 years old, and tells the protagonist to remember his name well. Yun Che notices that the opponent intends to use a fire technique, right in front of him, who masters such an element. The opponent is from the Cloudy Sun sect, Yanming. They say he is among the top 5 of the younger generation of his sect, being quite strong for his age. However, Yun Che just says that if he behaves and quietly goes back to his place, they won't need to fight. Yanming says that Che is just talking nonsense now, and he'd better use that deep technique from before like never before, because otherwise he won't get another chance. One of the members of the opponent's sect says that his technique is the hallmark of the Cloudy Sun, and such an ability is complex even for profound technique users at the 6th level. The New Moon leader is impressed and thinks that Yanming just entered the 3rd level and can already use it. Yun Che, however, jumps into the arena, and with bare hands he grabs the opponent's fire chains. Those who see this are shocked by how easily he caught the chains. Even the opponent questions whether Che will really be able to hold them for long. For his part, Yun Che says that by binding these chains with his hands he sought defeat. The opponent is astonished by the protagonist, and can't understand what he did. Che states that this temperature is not high enough, so it cannot hurt his hand, being nothing more than cheap pyrotechnics. In his thoughts, Che notices that he is truly completely immune to the fire element, even able to break the chains. His opponent, however, can't understand how that's possible. Even the members of his sect are shocked by the fact that the protagonist resolved the situation so easily. But their leader says not to be disheartened, because Yanming just entered the 3rd level, and mastering these chains requires more training, which is why he made mistakes. Yun Che, however, says that the opponent's circus tricks are cool, and it would be a big waste if he didn't showcase them in the middle of the street. Furious, Yanming claims he was just testing his power a bit, and now will show his true strength, then uses a technique called Cloudy Sun Chains. However, once again, the protagonist easily defends against the fire. One of the opponent's friends notices that Yanming's chains were broken again, and the master can't believe it, saying that Yanming must have lost control. Yanming doesn't understand why he failed again, as he believes he did nothing wrong, yet his attack was nullified. The protagonist tells him that he came to the arena to practice, not to entertain himself with cheap tricks, and if the opponent had backed off sooner, he wouldn't have wasted his time. Angry, Yanming sees Che turning his back on him, and tries to attack him from behind, saying that the protagonist shouldn't have mocked him. But before he can do anything, Yun Che strikes him in the face, and the kick throws Yanming across the arena. Seeing his disciple defeated, Yanming's master concludes that even the Burning Fists technique was overcome. He then becomes extremely irritated and says that this is a disgrace, and Yanming should return immediately. Yanming, after being defeated, returns to his master, but is met with shouts. The master says that his technique failed 3 times in a row and asks what he has been practicing these last years. Then he orders the student to return immediately to his sect's wing. Yanming thinks that there was definitely no way he could have failed and wonders what happened. After all, he always had the impression that something was off about the protagonist. Yun Che, however, says that 2 are not enough, and calls for the next opponent. Some think he's just a brat who got lucky because he beat someone who barely mastered his techniques. Others think Che is too arrogant because he didn't realize that he only won because his opponent made mistakes. Feng Guani, from the Storm Mystical House, 16 years old, wants to be the next. At first, he didn't want to fight, but since he found such a conceited opponent, he decided to enter the match. The protagonist says that it's not the first time he's heard that, and tells him to come quickly so they can finish, and he can leave like the previous two. The current opponent says that if he doesn't set the protagonist on fire in 10 moves, he won't be called Feng Guangyi anymore. He has already reached the 4th profound level without difficulty, and is confident he won't lose, saying he will use his 9-form storm and finish the opponent. He also says that Xiao Che should remember this well, as he will witness his technique. Witnessing the power of such a mystical art. This technique is a special move of his sect. Feng Guangyi then uses the 9-form storm, in the form of a fierce wind. Xiao Che thinks there are too many attacks, and he won't be able to dodge them all. So, he can only confront it with brute force, since his power is still at the 1st level. Facing someone who has surpassed the 3rd is obviously a futile effort. Feng Guangyi uses the 9-form storm again, this time in the form of wind clones. Che thinks it's all just an illusion, and the real body must be hidden somewhere. In this situation, his vulnerable spot would be his back. He thinks that if his intuition is correct, the opponent's real body can only be there, so he rushes to land a punch on him. Feng Guangyi says the protagonist is bold to attack him head-on, and if he's not incapacitated after this, he'll be gravely injured. He thinks Che is truly crazy if he believes he can hit him so easily. Even using all his strength to defend himself, he would still take a lot of damage. Facing him directly, calculating the damage is simply impossible, asserts Feng Guangyi. However, the protagonist activates the 7th gate of the evil god, ready to strike. After activating the evil spirit's ability, Xiao Che channels energy into his hands, and hits the opponent squarely in the abdomen. Soon, Feng Guangyi is thrown far away. He falls to the arena floor, feeling a lot of pain where he was struck. The protagonist tells him that he is indeed arrogant, but a powerful arrogant, unlike the opponent, who is a weak arrogant. Xiao Che then calls for the next opponent. Lan Xiao tells Yuan Ba that his brother-in-law performed better than they expected and asks if they really came from Floating Cloud City. Yuan Ba can't even respond, so impressed he is with Che. One of the sect members tells the leader that the new disciple is not bad at all, and that this time he really recruited a genius. The leader agrees and is happy that he didn't get hurt. The protagonist still waits for an opponent, while some discuss whether to face him or not. One of them comments that Xiao Che is very arrogant, but as long as he flies lower than the phoenix, they shouldn't worry, even though he's not stronger than Xiao Luqing and certainly knows nothing about him. Still in the arena, Che notices that a new opponent has stepped forward. His name is Tai Hingjuan, 17 years old, from the Iron Spear sect, and he says that he is impressed by the protagonist and would like to test his skills by fighting against him. Yuan Ba says that the Iron Spear sect has had a good relationship with them until now, and asks why they've decided to fight. Lan Xiao responds that she feels a good atmosphere with a pure intent coming from Tai, and that he's just speaking his mind. It even makes her hands tremble with nervousness. The protagonist never imagined that among the 7 sects, there would be someone with such a consistent thirst for battle. It seems that his previous fights had some impact on the current challenger. Che then says that if he believes they are at the same level of skill, it makes him feel honored and willing to accept the challenge and spar with him. Tai Hingjuan is speechless for a brief moment, but says that he's older than Che, and besides, those 3 fights left him quite exhausted. To make the fight fair, he'll use only 30% of his strength. Xiao Che thanks him for the consideration, but says that confronting him in such a way without using his full power might not be as interesting for Tai Hingjuan. Tai Hingjuan thinks that, at first, Xiao Che seemed very arrogant, and concludes that this is great, as it makes this fight even more fun for him. He prepares to face the protagonist, and says that he'd better be careful, as his cloud-piercing spear has never been defeated by people younger than him. Che also says that the opponent should be cautious. Right after activating his evil spirit, Che attacks. Tai Hingjuan doesn't fall behind and strikes back. Both are very fast in combat. While Tai Hingjuan tries to hit the protagonist, he ends up only attacking the afterimage. Xiao Che realizes he can't dodge, because the opponent is very fast, and has a very powerful spear technique. Tai Hingjuan launches relentless attacks, and uses his cloud-dissipating dragon technique. The audience notices that the fight between them is becoming more and more intense. Normally, Tai raises the level of his fights to win, and as he reaches a new level, Che is able to adapt to him. The opponent thinks that deciding to spar with Xiao Che was the right choice. He says that they've already exchanged dozens of blows, and despite being older, it's clear that he's losing. Xiao Che, on the other hand, says that although the opponent thinks he has already won, he hasn't yet forced him to show his best in the fight. Both have had victories and defeats throughout this battle. Tai Hingjuan says that he didn't expect the protagonist to have so much consideration, and he was already determining the outcome of the fight. He also says that if Che wants to end it like this, he will show him his strongest attack. The protagonist agrees and says they will decide the fight with just one move. After that, Tai Hengjuan prepares his spear and uses the Rising Sun Dragon technique. But he notices that the protagonist is going to take the attack head-on and calls him crazy, saying he shouldn't do that, as there's no way to withstand this blow. However, Yun Che stands still in the arena, waiting to be attacked. After being struck, a large sphere of energy envelopes him. Soon, only smoke remains around them both. Yun Che, for his part, simply says that he has won, and thinks that he didn't expect to become so strong under the evil spirit state. The opponent says he has lost and accepts defeat with satisfaction, and if possible, he would really like to have the protagonist as a friend. Che accepts his friendship. Tai Hengjuan tells his father that, despite conceding the victory, he is satisfied with the fight. His father agrees and states that he lost not because he is weak, but because his opponent is superior. He affirms that in the future, his son will be a true dragon among the clouds. Both look at the protagonist from afar, and the father says that, as if it were nothing, Yun Che provoked almost all the great sects in the city at once. It should be clear to his son the trouble he's getting into, and asks if he is still willing to become friends with the protagonist. Tai Hengjuan says yes, and his father states that this is the attitude of a true man. Everyone from the New Moon is surprised that Che won the fight and are unsure of his true strength. Even Yuan Ba can't believe his brother-in-law's power. Murom, for his part, bites his lip in envy and says that the protagonist is only at the first level and has already become the center of attention. And now it seems that Lan Shuero only has eyes for him. Murom calls him a bastard and says that, from today onward, he will understand who is truly greater in the New Moon House. Super confident, Yun Che says he has defeated the fourth opponent and asks who will be next. A boy present asks how strong the protagonist really is, and says that it seems like the 16-year-old warriors are not on the same level as him. Then, he asks if the protagonist would dare let the older ones from another sect practice with him a little. He further claims that Che will only keep winning if he fights against those of his age group, and asks him to let the older ones practice too, as they will crush him. Che says that if they want to face him, then they can try to take him down, and points to the veteran who is speaking, asking if he is already 18. He says that if he wants, he can face him. The veteran asks if the protagonist is really challenging him, but the protagonist says that he was the one who challenged him first. The veteran laughs and steps into the arena, saying that he's lost count of how many geniuses he has crushed, and it seems today is just another day like that. From the outside, Lan Shuero says that the opponent's name is Lu Jianan, a cold-blooded warrior from the 7 deadly swords, and 2 against him would not be enough to defeat him. Then she says that this fight is hers and the protagonist should not challenge him, as the opponent is 2 years older than him, making it unsuitable for practice. However, the protagonist is confident and tells the girl to leave it to him, as there's no need for her to exert herself yet, and besides, he has already suffered enough. Lan Shuero tells Che not to act impulsively, as the opponent is already at the 7th level and has a cruel heart. He is not someone that can be dealt with easily. Yun Che thanks her for the concern, but tells the girl to be at ease, as he won't get hurt nor stain the reputation of the New Moon Mystical House. These words reassure Lan Shuero. She says that Che wouldn't tarnish the image of his sect even if he lost this fight. No matter what happens, he must take care of himself, and if he realizes that he won't make it, he should give up and not be prideful. Lu Jianan thinks that the protagonist is lost against him and feels that he is now very furious, because he only wanted to trample and humiliate the unfortunate boy, but now he deserves more than that. The opponent doesn't want to talk anymore and says that the protagonist's arrogance has awakened in him a desire to slice him into pieces. While his body is being dismembered, he will make him enjoy every moment. Yun Che, however, is exuding energy, and prepares for the upcoming battle. The protagonist stands still on the battlefield, while Lu Jianan uses his sword to attack him, but he realizes he was only striking at an afterimage. Soon, the protagonist appears behind him, and thinks that the opponent's sword is fast, but he's lucky to have the fragmented shadows, along with his battle experience from his past life. With this, he tries to attack the opponent by surprise from above, but it wasn't as easy as he imagined, as the opponent countered and almost hit him. The ground of the place is torn apart by the strength of Lu Jianan's sword. Both of his sword strikes aimed for fatal hits. He is already acting with a murderous intent. Lu Jianan dares to try to kill someone inside the mystical house. That's exactly what he's showing in the fight. The leader thinks that Yun Che defeated Tai Hengjuan and yet is able to keep up with Lu Jianan, demonstrating that he is really not playing around. The strange thing is that his posture with Tai was different from the others. He was very arrogant with them, while with Tai he sought fair treatment. And if his guess is correct, Che is deliberately provoking the 7 great sects. Joining the New Moon Mystical House and creating friction with the 7 great sects, the leader tries to deduce what the protagonist's true goal is. He notices that up until now, Lu Jiannan has made about 100 attacks, and the protagonist has dodged every one of them, remaining calm with each dodge and adapting to the opponent's rhythm. Che is sensing the chi flow to dodge the attacks, and mastering such a skill requires over a decade of battle experience. He wonders what method the protagonist's grandfather used to raise such an extraordinary grandson. Jasmine appears and tells Che to stop wasting time and finish this quickly, as it's the first time he has used the evil spirit and fought for this long. He also says that the spirit can only be maintained for up to 30 seconds, and beyond that time, his arteries will suffer severe damage. Irritated, Lu Jiannan calls the protagonist a scoundrel, and says he only knows how to dodge, stating that he still has more moves to use against him. Relentlessly, they fight, and as their energies collide, the area around them shakes. However, the protagonist's arms begin to bleed due to his defensive maneuvers. Lu Jiannan seems unsatisfied with this. The sect leader, on the other hand, noticed something. With a smile on his face, Che faces his opponent, and even after taking such a powerful hit, he only suffered a slight cut. Right after, he counterattacks his opponent. Upon being struck, Lu Jiannan is thrown far away, but he quickly uses his energy to recover. The protagonist notices this from a distance, and says that he's going to die. Che realizes that the opponent also wants to use his strongest move before losing, but he regrets it, knowing it won't work, because as soon as he clenches his hands, the protagonist completely engulfs his opponent in flames before he can even react. Some realize that even the profound fire arts are within the protagonist's grasp, and his profound energy ignited to perform such a high-level art. Lu Jiannan now understands that Yan Ming wasn't defeated due to rookie mistakes, but because Che's control over fire is far superior to his own. He looks at the protagonist. While Che states that Lu Jiannan couldn't kill him, Lu Jiannan is stunned by his loss and wonders what the protagonist's true strength is. Che thinks that the opponent had murderous intentions against him, and if it weren't for the people watching, he would have had to kill him to end the fight. Lan Xiaoruo didn't expect the New Moon Mystic House to now have someone with such talent, and wonders if the sect's morale will rise because of him. Yuan Ba asks if Che is really his brother-in-law. Lan Xiaoruo thinks that he and his brother-in-law are from a small town in the east, and in such a simple place, there would be few opportunities for the protagonist to reach such high levels. If he had been born into a great sect, he would certainly have even more impressive power. Could he be the person she's been searching for all this time? She wonders. While the protagonist rests after the battle, the girl goes to him, saying that his arm is injured and asking how serious the wound is. However, Che replies that it's just a superficial wound, and besides, it has already stopped bleeding. Lan Xiaoruo tells him not to be stubborn and to let her take a look. She sees the protagonist's arm and realizes that he told the truth. Che says that his body is resilient and can take considerable damage without being seriously hurt. She looks at his soft skin and pure face and remains silent, thinking that despite the cut appearing to be very serious, it really seems to be just a scratch. The protagonist feels a bit embarrassed by her praise, and says that a man backed by beauty can be called a pretty face, but he has no beauty to back him. He then asks his senior to give him a little support. Lan Xiaoruo says that even with a pure face, he is still bold. Lan Xiaoruo also tells him to be careful because she can still go around telling people about his marriage, and then he won't be able to deceive anyone else. Seeing the two talking so closely makes Murong burn with jealousy. Xiao Luoqing stands up and applauds the outcome of the protagonist's fight, saying that he didn't expect to see a new star rise right here. The young master of the Xiao sect approaches, and says that he is genuinely interested in Che's skills. The protagonist doesn't like this at all and wonders if he's about to be challenged again. Some present notice Xiao Luoqing heading towards the arena and wonder if he's going to test his strength against the protagonist. But they conclude that this is not possible, as their power levels are definitely on different tiers. So, they wonder what he really wants. Che, on the other hand, says that he's nothing more than an apprentice, far from being a star, and in New Moon City, the only one who could be called that would be Xiao Luoqing. Xiao Luoqing says that after these fights, Che's name will echo through the streets of the city, but the protagonist says that he's flattering him with such words. Believing that the young master is about to offer some advice, Che wonders what his real intention is. The Xiao sect member tells the protagonist not to be so modest, as he has already defeated 5 high-level sect members, leaving him intrigued and wanting to learn more about him, and asks if Che would be willing to teach him. The others hear this and can't believe that someone like Xiao Luoqing is asking Che for guidance, as they are not on the same level of power. They even speculate that he wants Che on his knees to make him recognize the power of a true genius. Looking at him, the protagonist concludes that behind his smile, he hides a certain coldness. He thinks that Xiao Luoqing wants him destroyed, and probably what Che did ended up attracting his attention. Maybe Xiao Luoqing believes he has become an obstacle. If that's the case, the protagonist comes up with a plan. He asks if Xiao Luoqing would like to fight, as the power gap between them is too large, and he feels intimidated, but fighting against him would be very interesting. Xiao Luoqing finds this proposal excellent. So, he says he wants things to be fairer, as Yun Che has already fought 5 times today, so he can rest a bit and come back soon. But the protagonist says he still has some strength left, and believes he's still in shape to fight the young master. The others comment that having a bit of strength left wouldn't hurt, and just with the remaining strength, it wouldn't be enough for the protagonist to face Xiao Luoqing. He dared to be so arrogant in front of the Xiao sect member, and doesn't even know who he's dealing with. Concerned, Lan Xiao calls out to the protagonist, and says that even though he and Xiao are the same age, the last people he just fought are nothing compared to him. But Yun Che tells the girl to calm down because they're just going to spar a bit, and nothing can go wrong. He then turns to the young master, and says they should fight now. Lan Xiao says that Yun Che insists on not resting, and she respects his decision, but says that his condition is a bit worrying, and she fears that if he takes one of his attacks, it is very likely that he will take serious damage, and might even end up in pieces. The protagonist responds that it's normal to take considerable damage during a fight, but what worries him is if by chance he loses control and injures the young master, breaking tendons or something like that. Lan Xiao laughs loudly and says that here in the arena, everyone will be witnesses. That if he is injured during the fight, it will be because he didn't train enough, and they shouldn't blame Yun Che. The two are sure that, with so many people there won't be a lack of witnesses. No matter who gets hurt, anyone blaming the other is merely dishonorable and without integrity. Lan Xiao says she didn't play games with the protagonist, and didn't hide her intentions. In his thoughts, Yun Che says that he didn't bother or provoke him, yet still, he plots to destroy him. So, he concludes that the best thing to do is to destroy Xiao Luoqing completely. The protagonist is prepared to start the fight, and Jasmine appears, reminding him that the evil spirit's usage time is 10 to 20 seconds. He says that is enough. Xiao Luoqing thinks that the protagonist has just advanced to the first profound level, and even so, managed to defeat stronger opponents. His ability to use the fire element has reached unimaginable levels. Xiao Luoqing also says that even if advancing from the first level didn't go so well for him, the protagonist's stance towards the 7 great sects did not please him. So, he tells Yun Che to begin, and concludes that it's better to destroy him, as one genius around here is already enough. The protagonist advances and tries to attack the opponent, but his strike has no effect on him. Xiao Luoqing then counters the attack, making Che realize that Xiao Luoqing's profound energy suddenly gained density. The opponent says that Che's energy density is also incomparable, and he's only using 30% of his power. Yun Che says the young master really knows how to play, but on the next strike, he recommends that the opponent be a little more careful. Xiao Luoqing tells Che not to hold back, because if he ends up injured, he won't blame him. But in his thoughts, he says that Che still hasn't understood the difference between them. The protagonist says that with this display of weakness, he's still talking nonsense, and he's sure the opponent thinks he's a complete idiot. He then decides to attack again and thinks that, at this moment, the opponent seems to be doing his best, concluding that this is his best opportunity to kill him for good. For his part, Xiao Luoqing says that the protagonist is a fool if he really thinks he can defeat him like this. With that, he decides to increase his power to 70%. He then counterattacks, wishing for Yun Che's death. Both collide in midair, and everyone in the audience witnesses the greatness of their powers. Some time ago, in the dragon's cave, the protagonist tells Jasmine that now it seems like he has mastered the star god's broken shadows, but he feels like something is missing. Jasmine asks what he means. Yun Che says that she is very powerful, but only taught him profound speed techniques. As a disciple, he believes this might harm the master's reputation, and asks her to teach him an ultra-powerful technique, something capable of pulverizing even a dragon, just like she did with the one inhabiting that cave. But the girl says that he's not even opening the evil god's gate yet, and already wants to learn her star god's execution. She also says there's no need to teach him something like that because he already has this kind of attack, and it's hidden right within his profound veins. Our video ends here. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, bye bye.